sports stories in the morning's newspapers. Joining us are Jonathan Luke from The Guardian and the Mail's Ian Ladyman. Welcome to you both. Let's run you through the back pages. Buzzy bees sting Arteta's title dreams is the headline in The Guardian as Arsenal drop points in the title race. They also report on Thomas Tuchel's New England contract, which will see him take charge of the Three Lions at Euro 2028, a home tournament, of course. Sir Jim Ratcliffe's controversial comments on immigration continue to dominate the news agenda. The Mail has an exclusive story from Chris Wheeler and Mike Keegan reporting that United's multicultural squad have been stunned by their co-owners' comments. The Telegraph cover a potential FA charge for Ratcliffe after those comments, plus a picture of Arsenal captain Martin Odegaard looking frustrated following that 1-1 draw at Brentford. And the story of Sir Jim Ratcliffe doesn't just feature on the back pages as displayed here on the Star front page. Ban United, the headline. And her to stay is the headline in the Express as Tuchel commits his future to England. Ian, Jonathan, lovely to see you and have your company here on back pages. Let's get straight to the title race. Jonathan, will this seem for Arsenal like 2 points dropped?
Definitely. I think, notwithstanding the fact that Brentford is, going to Brentford certainly is one of the toughest tests you can have in the Premier League right now. The fact that they took the lead in the second half, that they started the second half with a lot of energy, that they seem to have the game under control, and then were undone by a Brentford long throw and could even have lost it at the end. I know both sides had chances. It felt like almost the opposite of what Arsenal would have wanted tonight. They would have wanted to control the game and get the goal and put it to bed. Instead, I think they've given some hope to certainly Manchester City and the chasing pack that there are frailties and vulnerabilities and perhaps a little bit of nerves and jitteriness there that their future opponents, notwithstanding City at the Etihad later this season, are going to take some comfort from.
Yeah, I've seen the back page there of the Daily Telegraph. Their headline, Arsenal title headache, Arteta's side stumble. Ian, how much is the pressure really starting to build on this Arsenal side and how well do you think they're handling it?
Well, 2 wins out of 6, I think that is in the Premier League, so that might suggest that they're not handling it quite as well as they may wish to. It's interesting, isn't it? I was at Anfield at the weekend and with 10 minutes left or something, it looked as though Arsenal we're going to finish that day with a 9-point lead, and all of a sudden here we are 3 days later, and it's a 4-point lead. The one thing I will say is that, because everybody asks the question, are Arsenal going to collapse? I don't think they're going to collapse, but you don't always have to collapse to lose a title race. You just have to kind of drop some points. And if this was the kind of all-conquering Manchester City side of 3 or 4 seasons ago, the side that went neck and neck with Liverpool and used to win towards the end of the season, I would say that City would be our next champions. But I'm not sure that is the City side that we are looking at the moment. I just had a quick look before we came on air, and I think 8 of the team that started at Anfield for City at the weekend haven't won a title with City. We keep saying, Arsenal haven't won a title and City have, but this version of City hasn't. So I think that's interesting as well. I think both teams will probably have a few difficulties between now and the end of the season, and I still do have a sneaking suspicion that Arsenal might just get there.
Jonathan, there's been a slight or very clear momentum shift in this Premier League title race. Arsenal are still 4 points clear, but Man City on the charge, 3 wins on the bounce. Who would you rather be?
Arsenal. I mean, absolutely. Okay. I think if you look at the pattern of the last few weeks, it is Arsenal who have been in control of games and then have often been caught out. But and City have, I think, more often they've either been chasing games or they've been in control of games and let it slip. I still think that City have the best attack and Arsenal have the best defence. And as the old maxim goes, it's defence that wins titles. I think it is still so hard to get anything out of Arsenal, even when they're not creating. It's so hard to get at them, to penetrate those lines. And so they managed to stay in games even when, even through kind of sticky periods. And then obviously they have the attacking capability to capitalise from their spells of pressure. So I think City are still vulnerable. City are still more vulnerable than Arsenal. If you look at the Spurs game, for example, or the United game, games where they have actually subsided a lot more quickly than Arsenal have. And I do think Arsenal have the better squad as well. I think they have the deepest squad that is going to make just a slight difference in this title race.
And for Brentford, Ian, another valuable point for them. Where does the limit lie with them this season? How far can they go up the table?
It's an amazing season for Brentford. I don't think I was alone at the start when Thomas Frank moved on to Tottenham and thinking that they might struggle. In fact, I thought they would struggle. It's been amazing what they've done. They've beaten. It's a great result for them tonight. They've beaten Liverpool this season at home. They've beaten Manchester United at home this season as well. Other notable results on the road have been slightly better. And the thing with Brentford is that every win is a bonus, and I don't mean that as in a patronising way, but it is. They've already probably achieved more than they would have expected to achieve this season, where they sit in the league right now. And this is a league where, outside the top three, do we rule Aston Villa out the title race? I don't know if we do, but outside the top three, anything goes. There's not a team of real great quality outside of the top three. So those clubs that are capable of punching upwards, the ones who are playing without pressure, they've got every chance of getting into the European places. And there's absolutely no reason why Brentford should not hope and aim to do that.
OK, let's move on to Manchester United and those comments on immigration from their co-owner, Sir Jim Ratcliffe. Back page of the Daily Telegraph. The headline, Ratcliffe faces United backlash. And we'll come to the United's potential squad reaction in just a moment. But first, let me just update people, because Manchester United, it reads, have underlined their deep commitment to diversity, equality and inclusion as the club distance themselves from co-owner Sir Jim Ratcliffe's controversial outburst about immigrants. Ratcliffe has released an apology, if you can call it that, Jonathan. Is it enough to put it right what some organisations have said and major political figures have said and have described as offensive and toxic? Is his apology enough?
Well, it's what I call a dog whistle apology. It's one of those apologies that is meant to placate the people that were offended, and it was very much I'm sorry if you were offended. I'm sorry if I'm sorry for you being a snowflake kind of apology. While also reassuring the people that agree with what he said that actually he does still mean those things. I think that the fact that it has caused such controversy will be a surprise to him. I genuinely don't think, for all his business acumen, his experience in the world of industry and business, and his experience in the world of sport, he is not overtly. He is not what you would think of as a political figure. He is not versed in the world of you say something and it becomes a headline and the Prime Minister's commenting on it the next day. I think that's a lesson that he'll probably take from this. And what he said was factually wrong. It was morally wrong, and I think that it is. We could get into this. We could get into the weeds of this for days and weeks. But I think the fact that there has been a significant pushback on it, that there are so many people speaking out against it, and it does fill me with a certain reassurance that there are there are lines you don't cross, and that for someone who is a custodian of this community, this really cherished historical community institution like Manchester United, that there comes a certain responsibility with that. And I think Jim Ratcliffe, if he wasn't aware of that yesterday, he's certainly aware of that today.
Yeah, and Jonathan, you mentioned the pushback to Sir Jim Ratcliffe's comments. In the Mail, they've covered this very aspect. The headline, Man United stars alarm at Sir Jim. Ian, it says an exclusive from Chris Wheeler and Mike Keegan. Sir Jim Ratcliffe's controversial comments about immigrants have caused alarm among part of the Manchester United dressing room and mortified club chiefs, Daily Mail Sport can reveal. What's your take on what the players in the dressing room, a multicultural dressing room, would have thought and felt about Sir Jim Ratcliffe's comments?
Well, of course they will. Good story by Chris and Mike to get that information and to reveal that. But when you think about it, why would they not feel that way? These players aren't stupid. Their social media feeds are full of all of this stuff and will have been full of all of this stuff all day since it broke, I think, last night. They've, like you say yourself, just it's a multicultural dressing room. These guys have got kids in Manchester, they have kids at Manchester schools. And of course they will feel it, just like everybody who with the best interest of Manchester United at heart will feel it. And this is one of the big mistakes that I think Ratcliffe has made ever since he bought the share that he has in United 18 months ago. So Jim Ratcliffe strikes me as the type of bloke who's not very used to ever being told that he's wrong. And now in business, especially when you're very successful in business, you can probably get away with that. You can't get away with that when you're a part owner of Manchester United. Manchester United is one of the most important institutions in Manchester. I live in Manchester, and I know exactly how Manchester sees itself. And this is not how Manchester sees itself. Whoever you support, whether you support Manchester United, Manchester City, or don't even have an interest in football. I was out and about in Manchester near where I live today, bumped into 2 United fans I know who were horrified by it, absolutely horrified by what Ratcliffe has said, and particularly the language that he's used. And the language, I think, has just added another great layer on top of this. To use words like colonisation, whether he meant it in that way or not, obviously hints at a very malevolent agenda. And that is the problem that he's got now. You cannot be a public figure at a football club like Manchester United and be seen to hold views like that. You just cannot.
Jonathan, in the Daily Telegraph, they're reporting that they understand the FA will look at whether any rules have been broken. Do you think that's a legitimate way to go forward about this? Is it a fine or some kind of punishment that's needed?
Yeah, I mean, again, if there is some institutional consequence for what he said, then I think, however small or tokenistic that is, then it is also kind of a valuable lesson. I think one of the things we've lost in public discourse these days is the idea of consequences, that your actions have consequences. Certainly for the billionaire class who feel like they can essentially say what they want and do what they want, and no one will ever call them up or drag them up on it. That is a valuable lesson to learn as well. As we know, the language of colonization is deeply offensive. It is billionaires like Jim Ratcliffe who don't pay their tax in the UK, who live abroad, who take public subsidies for their businesses. They are the ones who are colonising this economy, and I think the reaction of a lot of United fans, a lot of the wider footballing public, recognises that it is not immigrants who should be demonised, but people who amass massive wealth off the exploitation of the planet.
Yeah, Jonathan, Ian, I appreciate your thoughts on that subject. We're going to take a quick break now. When we come back, we'll be looking at more of the sports stories in the morning's newspapers.
Hi guys, as you know, we'll do a few questions for the game tonight, and then we'll do just as a couple on a Friday, 12 o'clock embargo for the FA Cup. So if we're ready in here, we'll kick off with Sam from Sky.
Hi, Mikel. Normally you look at this as 2 points dropped, but the way the game went, is that actually a point gained, perhaps?
Well, I think the game had different moments. The first 10-15 minutes, we lacked certain composure to dominate the game better. I think after that, we started to play much more in our way and started to play in their half and generated some good situations without really having clear-cut chances. The second half, the way we started, we really looked a threat. The way we combined, the way we threat constantly their backs, and the goalie was much better. Again, without really hitting the targets enough times or finishing enough actions. And then we scored the goal, and the game was under total control. But against them, that's not enough, because they just need somebody making a foul that is unnecessary, a ball in the channel, they push you, the clearance is not good, ball goes for a throw-in, and then you have to pray, because they are exceptional at what they do. The chaos that is in around that ball is very, very difficult to defend. And we said, you want to win here, you're going to have to defend the box with your life, and you're going to have to clear the ball, because there's a lot of people there. And if you don't do that, very difficult for you to win the game. We haven't done it in one of the actions, and credit to them as well for that. And then the game became more open, more transitional. They had one of the big chances and the clearance of Declan just at the end. And we have two very good counters and probably the biggest chance of the game when Martinelli is 1v1 with the keeper to win it.
Yes, you have to score that, Martinelli.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, it's football, and the keeper as well can make the decision and the action that he did. But if you want to win here, I mean, you're gonna have to be really ruthless in both boxes, and today we like that.
Tom, Reach.
Joel, at half time you made a big change with Eza coming off and Martin coming on. Could you talk about that change, why you decided to make that change and why that was the decision of that?
Because with the way that, especially that they were pressing, I think we needed another kind of profile to generate many more problems to them in and around those areas, and I think he came on in the pitch really well, and the team had another gear and more threat to arrive to the areas that we wanted to do, and that decision.
Sam, Telegraph.
Are you worried at all by the lack of impact that Eze is having?
Well, I think he had moments, and it's not easy when you move to a new club. It's always like this, and when you play against a team that is like this, and the ball is a lot of times not on the floor, and you have to be constantly breaking the play and do that, especially for the attacking and creative players, is more difficult.
Amy, Athletic.
Mikael, is there something in having to play second after Man City? There's been a lot of games where Arsenal play first and you have an easier time maybe to take on a game in that conditions. Do you feel like there's a different kind of pressure at the moment?
I don't think so. I think we played as well after them a few times this season, and we have won the games, and today is not about that. Today we lack certain things against them. You have to defend those situations, even better prevent them. You want to give them no chance or just hope that something bad happens, and we didn't manage that well enough for us throughout the game.
In a sense though, do you take a positive, although you talked about you've got to defend with your life and the set pieces and stuff, there was some moments of defending with their lives and one-on-one when there were breaks. Talked about Declan, Mosquera.
Yeah. The thing has to be a reaction, because they go for volume. I mean, they know the probability of they want to create, and they just need volume to increase that probability. And they are constantly doing that, and they are really good at doing that.
Okay, we'll do the last couple on.
Do you have a problem with the way that Brentford play, the chaos and the play set pieces? Is all
they are really good, because when they have to play as well in and around you, I think they dominate so many areas on the high press. They are really good. They are really good on restarts. They are really good when they have to counter, exceptional when they have to counter as well. They have a lot of qualities, and big credit to them. And they can take the game into these areas, and they are really well coached. And from the beginning, I said credit to them for what they do, because if not, they don't have the home record, and they are not in the position they are in the league. That's for sure.
Last couple tonight, Ed from Guardian.
Obviously, you're still 4 points clear of City at the top. Is it important that you don't panic after dropping a couple of points tonight, and everybody just stays calm and tries to keep focused?
Well, that's what we have to do. I mean, we're going to be willing and preparing to win every single match, and the only thing that we can do is focus on that and raise the levels collectively and individually to be better than the opponent every week, and that's going to carry on like this till May, regardless we play before or after that. It's just the things that we have to do. That's the most important thing.
Phil, PA?
Yeah, just as a follow-up to that, I guess, Mikael, there was one stage on Sunday where it looked as though you'd be 9 points clear. Now, see the gap, as Ed said, 4 points. Is there a worry at all at the moment?
I understand, but that's an if, and if we would have lost in Newcastle, we were 8 points behind Liverpool in October. So if is a lot of ifs for 10 months in this competition. You can only focus in what you have to do and try to do that in the best possible way.
Okay, we do a couple for Friday, 12 o'clock for Wigan on Sunday. If we can just put this in the back. Cheers, guys.
your views on the game overall?
Well, very happy, obviously, with the results and especially the performance, the way we started the game. You really want to show how much you want it when you play against this kind of opposition in the Cup, and we certainly had that attitude. And then I was a bit surprised with the level of cohesion and connections very early in the match, because when you make that many changes, that can be a part of the game that can be lacking, but certainly wasn't. And we scored some very, very good goals, and I'm very pleased with that.
Obviously, with Ricardo coming out, you could maybe brought in Declan or Piero or Martin, but you played Bukayo in sort of more central areas. Is that something you've been
looking to try, and how did you think it worked?
Yeah, that's something that's a possibility, and I wanted to try it, and we might use it in the future. So still so many games, competitions, and different scenarios to play in the season, and that's a possibility that we have. Yeah.
Tom, Reach.
Okay, just two quick ones. Quickly on Ricardo, what's the situation with him, and is he okay?
Yeah, him and Ben is the only doubt. We have to wait and see in the next 48 hours how things develop.
And you might remember a press conference a couple of years ago where he talks about goalkeepers and substitutions in games with goalkeepers. He said in the right moment you would make a change.
Yeah.
Was today that day?
No, this was a different context. I think a different moment that I was referring to a few years ago. But I think everybody has to feel that he's got a chance. And if there are players, one of them will be Tommy for his attitude and the way he helps everybody every single day. So we had a chance to play in some minutes. We have to try to do it. And I think he was very happy.
Martin, Athletic.
Hi, Mikel. Just another one on Bakaya, because he's played there before, I think, during the lockdown kind of seasons. What do you like about him in those areas compared to when he's playing for the right?
Well, he's more central, he's closer to the goal. It's a bit more difficult for the opponent to get his reference constantly. He can interchange position with the wide player as well. And he's so good at picking those spaces. And when he's there, he can really hurt you with the ball.
And when you say you were surprised by the cohesion, was it him in particular, or?
No, there were a lot of them, and most of them they haven't played that much together, so that's not easy. But some of the goals were exactly what we wanted to do.
Matt Standard.
It looked like the plan was going to be to give Miles minutes in midfield today. Obviously, you couldn't do that for late change. How frustrating was that?
No, that was another learning moment, and I always tell them, be ready, because in the role that you have, it can change any minute. And Bukayo had to be ready, and he was made aware of that very, very, very late. But you need to understand the position, you need to understand the global intentions of the team, and if you do that, then you can perform, and I think Matt had a really good game.
Ed, go ahead.
Hi, Mikel. Two great assists from Eze today, but those two goals, pleased that a confidence booster for him after a difficult week.
Yeah, some superb balls and his intentions. I think the risk that he took in the final third, the amount of shots that he tried to take as well, I think that's really positive. That's what we want from him.
And could he have a big role to play for you in the next week, given that Martin Odegaard wasn't in the match they scored today? Is he going to be around?
Yeah, he's already playing a big role. He's played a lot of games for us, and he will continue to do that.
Your last couple, Phil from PA.
Yeah, I was just going to follow up on that really. I mean, do you think that would just be really important for Eze, because obviously he has had his sort of critics in this season and just laid on two great assists and had a really good performance. So how good would that be?
Well, that's what those players need, those moments, and especially when we talk about the creative players, they need to feel that they are producing those moments, and very happy with that, very happy with Gavi as well, the run that he made, the timing of that, and then the finishing action, really, really positive. So it's good for the mood, for the confidence. It's a really good thing.
Just on Martin, was he rested today, or was he injured? Or?
Yeah, with Martin, we have to wait and see. Obviously, he picked that knock on the action where we conceded the goal, and he wasn't fit for today.
Final for Josh from the side.
Hi, Miguel. Just to touch on that with Martin, also you said Ricardo and Ben waiting to see what's happened with them. You're now still in all four competitions, on top of then losing Kai and Mikel.
Yeah.
Are you worried that your squad's getting thin as you go out and play even more games going on?
Yes, and especially because we are going through. Before it was the strikers, then it was the defenders, now it's the midfielders. But we are still coping with that. But yeah, we need some players back and fit, and to give us as well not only numbers, but different options in relation to the opponents that we have. So the quicker they are, the better.
Okay, well, good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Then and Arsenal just 4 points ahead of Manchester City after that 1-1 draw at Brentford last night. Bigger picture, having looked at the game, is that a point gained or 2 points dropped?
2 points dropped, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. When you look at Arsenal, where they are, where they arrive, and being top of the league and top of the Champions League, and let's face it, the best team in the country right now, based on form and how they play in every single game, their consistency, they're the best team. Or they're the team to beat. Yeah, of course, Liverpool are the champions, and City are City, incredible team. But you have to say that when you play in Brentford and you're Arsenal and you're top of the league, you should beat Brentford. That's very clear. And when you draw against Brentford and you're trying to win the Premier League title, 2 points lost. So we could be in a couple of months' time looking back at that result and thinking, maybe that's where the disruption was. Now, both teams, I think City and Arsenal, I think those two will be the two at the top at the end. But those two, I think, will have some inconsistent results over the next couple of months. For Arsenal, you just hope that that wasn't the start of 2 or 3 bad results, because let's face it, and it's weird because in the last few weeks, in the last maybe 3 weeks or so, 3.5 weeks, every week I'm like, okay, Arsenal will win it now. Then City, then City will come back.
Yeah.
Then no, Arsenal will. I did say at the start of the season that Manchester City, for me, were the title favourites. So if I was going to pick one to win the title, at the beginning, I said Manchester City. But I've been so impressed by this Arsenal team this season. Yes, it's been up and down, but the consistency and the levels that they've reached, and also they've added the quality players to their squad. I've just been so impressed by Arsenal this season.
Do you think that the biggest thing that could hold Arsenal back from winning the Premier League this season is the psychological scarring that everyone seems to say it must be there because they've come second 3 times in a row, and the nervousness of the fans, and every time Arsenal drop points, the story in the media is, oh, Arsenal, are they going to bottle it again? Is it about how you handle that and getting over that psychological pressure? Is that the big thing that's either going to win Arsenal the Premier League or not?
Absolutely, yeah. Because when you look at the 4 points clear and where they are, you know, we're in middle February. You have now got to turn it on, and your psychology of it has to be, let's go win it. There's pressures. Those pressures are going to be outside noises, all of these things. But I think Arsenal are capable of handling that. The biggest thing is themselves, Arsenal. Only they could win the title, and only they could lose the title.
Do you think the previous experiences then, do you think they actually are good when you come to do it again, or are they a burden because you think about the near misses? Or do you think coming into this season, it's made them stronger? Which of those two do you think it might be?
Oh, I think it's absolutely made them stronger. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's for me, it's the only way that I see it is, you look at the last 5 years, and a few years ago, they were nowhere near ready for the title. Maybe the second season that Mikel Arteta was involved, no way. Even the third season, you didn't believe that Arsenal could win a title. The last 2 seasons, you would start to believe slowly, and that's the remarkable job that Mikel Arteta has done. He's had the time, he's been given the time, but also he's changed the culture of the football club to become title contenders. They're firmly title contenders. And I believe that they've got a blank space at the training ground with the Premier League trophy that when they win it, they'll put it in there. I mean, we'll have to see that, but that's what I believe. This season, it's now faced with, can Arsenal just do it themselves, and can they win the title or not? And I believe it's going to be purely down to them, because listen, when you achieve great things and when you big titles or whatever, not just Premier League, I just mean in general, most things that you go and achieve that are brilliant, and you think, when you look back and you think, how did we do that? 9 times out of 10, it's filled with absolute persistence, consistency, and pure drive to go and win the title. That's what Arsenal need to do now.
Could be going all the way down to the wire. This
it will do. I'm saying it's going down to the last 2 games.
Okay.
At the start, no great surprise there, just to bring you the now official news that has come in from Tottenham in the last couple of moments, and that is that Igor Tudor has now officially been announced by the club as the interim boss until the end of the season. We will discuss that, him, what that means for the club going forward. But first of all, let's just wrap things up on Thomas Frank. Going to come to you first of all, Tim. When you look at the recent run of results for Tottenham, no wins in their last 8. I mean, it's the longest winless run in the Premier League, I think, since the days of Juan de Ramos. But the atmosphere throughout so much of this season has been absolutely toxic. Did it leave the club with a decision they didn't want to make, but had to make?
Absolutely. I think you got it spot on there. You know, they haven't won a game in the Premier League this year. and they couldn't find a win at home. So the toxic nature of the fans have got the man the sack. I mean, he hasn't helped himself, Thomas Frank, because it's been really poor. We know there's mitigating circumstances regarding injuries. Every club gets injuries. If you're challenging the teams at the top half of the league, then you can have some sympathy, but they still have a good enough squad and a good enough team to put on that pitch to beat the teams at the bottom of the league, in the bottom half of the league. So it was inevitable. I don't think they wanted to sack him. I really don't. I think if they kept hold of him, they would stay in the Premier League anyway. But they've gone totally left field with the appointment of Igor Tudor. It might work, it might not. I mean, but I just think it was inevitable that he was going to lose his job. We know who's coming in the summer. It will be Pochettino, 100%. I don't think the club will be brave enough to turn to anyone else. I think they should look at elsewhere. I think there is other options out there, but I don't think the pressure on another man getting that job and losing 2 games, and then the crowd saying, well, you had the opportunity to bring Poch back. It's impossible for them to look elsewhere. I don't think they will.
And the difference this season, Dawes, in terms of what's going on at the bottom, look, Wolverhampton Wanderers and Burnley look pretty much gone, but it's that third spot that's very much up for unwanted grabs at the moment. The owners clearly wanted it to work. They believed it would work eventually under Thomas Frank. Once the possibility of relegation, which it has done in the last week or so, comes into the equation, at that point, they had no choice but to act, did they?
No, I mean, this has been going on for numerous weeks now, and the speculation around Thomas's job, was he going to be there? I go back to the game they lost to West Ham, and that's when it really revved up, the toxicity, the disconnect between the fans and the players against Thomas. It came to a point where the board had to act quickly, and I think they've acted because of the performances of West Ham, the results of West Ham. I see it with Nottingham Forest as well. And as I say, the hierarchy, I don't think, wanted to do it. And you can clearly see that they didn't have someone, when they sacked Thomas on Wednesday morning, that there wasn't someone in so quick.
Yeah.
It's took today to be confirmed. We've seen it yesterday. Igor Tudor is the guy who's going to take the helm for 12 Premier League games. And he needs to make a quick fix. He has to find some belief. He has to galvanise these group of players. Next game is the North London derby. The fans have to be on board. Because let's not get away from this. There's 5 points between them and West Ham. It could have been 3 had Manchester United not scored in the last minute. And then the real nervousness, anxiety surrounding it. It's mind-blowing to think that Tottenham are in a relegation battle. It really, really is. And that is a concern why I think they've made this decision.
Do you think, I'll go to Merce Shorey, but just lastly from you on Tottenham, well, it probably won't be the last question to you on do you think the players ever fully respected him? Do you think they ever fully bought into what he was
doing? Do you know what?
to
I'd like to think so. I really, really would with that group of players. And when Thomas came in, he had a huge decision to make. Who did he make captain? And he made it Christian Romero. You know, was that the right decision in hindsight? Probably not, because I think he's let him down off the field with some of his media comments. And then his discipline record, his sendings off. For me, there was only 2 players it could be, Romero or Mickey van der Ven. He went down the Romero. I'm answering your question. I don't know. I can't answer that. Only those players in the dressing room will know that. But have they give everything? He's been dealt a hard hand. He really, really has, amount of injuries. Tim touched on it, but you have to deal with it. But when you lose, I mean, at the moment, Bentancur, Danzo, Bergvall, Maddison, Kulusevski, Kudos, Solanke's back, Udogie, Odegaard, Richarlison, Udogie's back. I mean, it was always going to be a challenge. Did I expect them to be in this situation? Never in a million years. They finished 17th last year, and I said there was one guarantee that they wouldn't finish that low again. Well, I'm wrong at this moment in time, because the pressure is on. It really, really is.
And before we come on to talk about the man who comes next, Merce, do you think if the board had kept faith with him, they'd ignored the outside noise, that he would have eventually turned it around? Did you see enough from him this season to suggest that might happen?
You just don't get that much time at big, so-called big clubs. Do you know what I mean? They need to get results. Fans get you the sack. Yeah. Very rarely a manager gets the sack and all the fans are cheering your name and singing your name. You know, at the end of the day, you know, Dawes said it upstairs when we were chatting. It's panic stations now.
Let's look at that win percentage. Who's top?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just pop that in for you, Merce. Just for Tim's benefit.
Could have gone back in, no? Would you fancy that, Tim? What's the benefit of going back in? What's the upside?
About 40 grand a week. At least.
I love it. Now he's smiling.
Yeah. And that's the worst way out. That's the worst way out. With a 3 million quid to keep them up. Yeah. They had to get someone who was going to come in that was left field, really, because they're coming in for 12 games.
Yeah.
They're coming in for 12 games. If they keep them up, everybody's going to go, of course Tottenham are going to stay up.
Yeah.
It's Tottenham, do you know what I mean? They've got good enough players. And if they don't, then, yeah, I don't know where this lad will go after this. But I'd be shocked if they went down. I would be shocked if they went down. They've got too many good players for me. I think they just got to get organised. They've got to keep on nicking points. When you come in as a new manager, it gives you time to sit 10 behind the ball. They can sit 10 behind the ball against Arsenal next weekend. The crowd ain't going to go mad. They know the score. When you're losing week in, week out, you got to play attacking football. It's like, I need to win a football match, and you start bombing forward. I watch Tottenham. It's like an end-to-end football match. Yeah. You know, they got to start playing really like Arsenal play. They've got to come from a base, and they've got to nick a point here. And, Arsenal win games, but they got to nick points here and there. So for me, they stay up. Be interested in what this man does. I know he likes them to work hard, which I hear that, wants them to work hard. I mean, that's an absolute must. I mean, that's just the norm, work hard. And then they'll go from there. But, yeah, the interesting one will be stay up, and they've got to get it right next time. They've got to get the right manager next season.
And that's the thing, Clinton, before we look at Tudor in closer detail, you look at, conveniently, Ange Postecoglou, guest on the Stick to Football podcast this week, in the very week that the man who followed him gets shown the door of the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. But he talked about that first season where he finished fifth, and then not being able to compete in the transfer market, Tottenham not being able to match the wages that they need to be paying to bring in the kind of players that he wanted. The problems at Tottenham go beyond whoever's head coach, don't they?
Yeah, definitely. But Tottenham are still signing some good players and they still should be doing a lot better. Their recruitment's nowhere near as good enough. We've said it many times. Tim said it. There's probably better players in the academy who they could have brought through, and they spent money that ain't been good enough. But they've still spent a lot of money on players. It's just the players are not good enough. They have a lot of injuries. I do think Tottenham will be all right, but some of the players that they've got injured are top quality players that will improve that squad. Igor Tudor is going to come in there. I agree with Tim. It is left field. He's done all right at the likes of Lazio and Marseille. I get that. He was a good centre-half in his time. Me and Mercer playing at Juventus and stuff. But this is a big job. This is Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. No matter what Ange's saying when he said Tottenham are not a big club, it is a big club. Tottenham's a massive football club. You go there, it's a big football club. They should be doing much better than they're doing at this moment in time.
He's not really big in terms of ambitions.
Well, maybe he could do that. He could say that big in ambition, but they do have ambitions to go. They want to be competing. Just at the moment.
They're currently in a relegation battle.
But the club have ambition to be near the top. That is, I'm not saying that's why they brought in Thomas Frank, because you don't bring in, no disrespect to someone like Thomas Frank, to go and win you the Premier League. So they have to make sure the next appointment that they have in the summer and the money that they spend, they can compete at the top. But at the moment where they are, you expect them to get out of trouble.
The problem is the stadium.
Yeah,
stadium costs money. You've got to, what Wenger done at Arsenal with the Emirates is just mind-blowing. They had to sell players every year, still getting in the top four. These can't just go and buy everybody in the world. They can't just go out and go, especially with the rules and the price of what the stadium costs. But sooner or later that's going to be paid for, and then they'll probably have a go then. But at the moment, they just got to stay afloat. I bet they should be staying more than afloat. I played against Tottenham enough times. Tottenham's a big club. It is a big club. It's interesting, that, Merce, and that's what I was going to say. When I listened to Ange Postecoglou, he's talking about being able to sign players. Spurs have had a model for a long, long time. I even go back to 2005 when Martin Jol was there, and they signed myself from the Championship. You signed Aaron Lennon from the Championship. You signed Wayne Routledge. You signed Tom Huddleston. You fast forward, you have Michael Carrick already there, Jermaine Defoe. They then go and sign Dele Alli. They then sign Gareth Bale. You send Christian Eriksen, Jermaine Defoe. So they've had a model, and that model's never changed. They've never moved away from it. And that will be people's argument going, right, they need to go and sign 70, 80, 90 million pounds players. That model's always been there. And I listened to him talking about he wanted Gay, he wanted Mbumo, he wanted Semenyo, he wanted Pedro Neto. Realistically, they can't compete with Manchester City in the wages. They can't compete with Chelsea. Or they maybe don't want to. That's the model where Spurs are. Spurs are a huge football club, but where they've always been in recent years, the job that Mauricio Pochettino. I didn't put Danny Rose in that bracket. I didn't put Kyle Walker into that group. Toby Alderweireld, Jan Vertonghen, where Mauricio took these group of players to finals. Yes, they didn't get over the line. To Champions League. It's remarkable that where they are, and where they've been, and it steps back. It's hard. They bring Archie Gray in the summer and Bergvall and these kind of players. So the model's always been there. And at this moment in time, it just isn't quite working. And the challenges are big for Igor Tudor to go into the football club.
Clinton Morrison's going to be watching the early kick-off in the FA Cup fourth round, the game between Burton Albion in League One and West Ham, who've made 10 changes. 12:15 kick-off. This is classic FA Cup. Slight delay to kick-off. Hole in the net at the Peretti Stadium. So there'll be a slight delay to kick off, and then you can get your eyes down, Clinton, and keep right across that one. Tim, let's pick up then on, before we talk about long-term succession, Spurs, on Igor Tudor. He's known for being a no-nonsense manager, like he was as a player, known for very, very intense training sessions, likes 3 at the back. He wants his players to run, and then more run as well. How do you envisage, then, this playing out? It feels like Tottenham, because they've gone for interim, it's come up on them very quickly. The owners don't want to make the decision. They've gone for shock therapy with this appointment. Is it going to work?
Hope so. We all hope so. I'm not sure Merce does, but certainly on this end, we hope so. And if he beats Arsenal in the first game, everything's happy. He might even get the job. It'd be a statue of it. If they beat Arsenal in the next game, we'll put a statue up of him.
Take the cockerel down, no? Don't put him up.
A Tudor statue.
It's going to be difficult. He has no knowledge of the Premier League. People will say, does that matter? It doesn't matter if you're taking a job at the top of the league, but you're coming in. When I say what's the upside of taking this job, what is the actual upside,
apart
from the money
for a start,
from him? What is the upside for him? If he finishes 12th, he's getting no credit. The downside is so catastrophic. Would you want your fingerprints all over Tottenham getting relegated from the Premier League? I think I'll go back to it. Thomas Frank would still be there if it wasn't for the toxic nature of the fans. And I can totally understand the disgruntlement of the fans because they're not getting the results. I heard people say they're sleepwalking into the Championship. I think they'll have enough, even with the injuries, to get out of it. But he will get no credit for that. And the downside is so great, it's almost... It can only foul. He can only foul. He's getting no credit for keeping Tottenham in the league. The only way he gets the job on a permanent basis, because I see on their statement they said, if he does well, then there's an opportunity for him to take it long term. What does doing well actually look like? Tell me. Is it Di Matteo at Chelsea winning the Champions League, winning every single game? Chelsea had a lot better players than Tottenham did to win the Champions League.
And I just wonder, Dawes, because I was looking at some comments by George Bloxall, who's a journalist working out in France, saw a lot of him when he was at Marseille, and he said he's the kind of character who doesn't try to be liked. He's very, very direct in terms of what he wants from his players. And when you look at the dynamics between Thomas Frank and some of the bigger players, in particular Romero, who you've talked about, how does that then play out, do you see, over the course of these final games of the season?
Well, it could be a shock to some of the players' systems. He will demand. And for me, he has 12 games. Do I see him being there long term? Probably not. It's a stopgap. It's to try and get out of the trouble. And I'm with Tim. They have enough to get out of this relegation battle. I look at some of the games. You go Arsenal, Fulham, Palace, Liverpool, Forest. I can list it. They play Wolves away, Leeds at home, Palace, Fulham, Sunderland. 3 wins might be enough for Spurs. If they can't get 3 wins with that group of players, I think I could go in.
That are not below them in that lot.
Yeah, I know, I get that, Merce, but surely they have to be able to get out. They've only won 1 in 11.
Yeah.
The pressure's on. There has to be something, and he will not care what those players think. He's just got to try and get a response. That's why they've made the decision. So, what formation he'll play? I've listened to a lot of people when he was at Juventus. You look at his list there when he was up there. He's never stayed anywhere very long because it's a quick fix. That's what he does. Will he play a back 3? Make them tighter. I don't know if they've got the players at the top end of the field with the amount of injuries they've got out injured. He has to look at all this and go and think what's the best way to win some football matches, because they have to win 3 games. No doubt about that.
Merce, just picking out some of the statement that Tottenham have released in the last few minutes. They say Igor joins us with a clear focus to improve performances, deliver results and move us up the Premier League table. His mandate, they say, is straightforward: bring organisation, intensity and competitive edge to the squad at a decisive stage of the campaign. In order to do all of that, and bearing in mind the amount of players currently missing through injury at the moment, what's his biggest challenge right now in achieving what the club have laid out there?
Well, I wouldn't know any manager in the whole world whose criteria would say that on it. But I'll get him out of trouble But yeah, you've got to win football matches. You've got to get organised. I think that's what gives him the advantage. What I said, he's got to get organised. He ain't got to win the first game. He's got to make sure he doesn't lose the first game.
which is a big advantage. He's not playing like a no disrespect to Sunderland at all, but Sunderland at home, where the fans turn up and they're arrogant enough to know that they should beat Sunderland, even though they're about 15 points ahead of them. So it's got one of them situations. It's a good game for him.
Yeah.
Next weekend, it's a great game. He's got to come in. He's got a big advantage. He comes in, he can upset whoever he wants. Do you know what I mean? He's not going to be there the long term. He'll be there for 12 games. He's a big bloke. You're not going to mess about with him. And two, the problem is if he loses these players' agents are being told, I'd definitely get you a club if they go down. And that's the big problem he's got. There's too many players there that will not be playing in the Championship. And that's the problem. Yeah. So he's got to come in and make sure he gets this very, very right. It's all right coming in and going, right, I'm going to go and I'm going to tear it up and I'm going to have a go at them and all that. Because these players will sit there and they'll go, not for me. not for me.
And if Pochettino's not for you in terms of long-term appointment next season, who should they be looking at?
I'm not saying not for me. I just don't think they will look.
You don't think they'll go for him?
100%.
No,
I'm saying about. I'm not saying he's not the right person. I'm just saying I don't think the players, if he goes in with that attitude of you're running around, they won't have that. He's got to go in and step on shells, get everybody on side here.
Yeah, on side.
This is massive for Tottenham.
But on the long
term, it will be Pochettino, 1,000,000%. I don't think they're brave enough to look anywhere. They won't look past Mauricio Pochettino because there's such a clamour. There's an overwhelming clamour. The fans are singing his name now. There's an opportunity. He's out of contract at the USA. There's an opportunity to bring him to the football club. And if they don't, and they're brave enough to go elsewhere, I think Iraola should 100% be in the frame. De Zerbi, for me, should be in the frame. They won't consider it. If Mauricio says he wants to come, if they're not in the Championship, which I don't believe they will be, because then no one will want to take them, they will look like they will go straight to him. 100%. They won't look anywhere else. They won't be brave enough to. Because the pressure, you imagine going in there and they overlook Mauricio Pochettino and bring another manager in. Say if it is Iraola. So he comes into the club. I mean, it'd be like, you lose 2 games. They'll be saying, what are you doing? You had an opportunity. You messed it up again.
It'll be the same deal as with Frank. When you come from a smaller club, this is too big for you.
Yeah, but forget that. It don't matter who it is. They want the Messiah. The Messiah in their eyes is Mauricio Pochettino. They've got short memories. They wanted him out of the club. He's done brilliant when he was there, but they wanted him out and they got him out. You know, at the end of his tenure.
that was a lot better team than what this is.
Of course it was.
Do you know what I mean? That's my thing with Pochettino.
I was going to mention that. I was going to mention that because it's almost as if they do appoint him and it doesn't work, it ends all future conversation about bringing Pochettino back. Because you're right to mention that. Kane, Son, Eriksen, Ali, Walker, you can keep reading them off.
Dembele, Vertonghen, Alderweireld, Rose, Walker, the team, Hugo Lloris.
It's chalk and cheese.
Frightening team, top team, got them to a Champions League. Oh, they didn't get over the line, people will say. He did an incredible job. From 2014, when he went into that building, I was there, saw how he worked, and he just catapulted them to competitive in the Premier League. Champions League final. Mauricio, for me, I think is a no-brainer. People may say, oh, he's going back after the Chelsea situation and all that. He loved that football club. Probably when he left, things happened. People say don't go back, but I'd be surprised if it didn't happen in the summer.
I wouldn't go back.
Would you not?
I wouldn't go back to them unless I had guarantees they're going to bring top players to that football club. And Mauricio, he's so strong going in now. Because he's saying, I'm coming back, but you tell me who we're going for.
Yeah.
Paul Mitchell was there and he was recruiting the players for him. Done a great job because hand in hand, bringing in Sonny, placing world-class players like that, working hand in hand with the sporting director. He's got to bring his own person in that role to go and find the players what he wants, where he thinks is going to be success. And what will success look like? And I'll tell you what they will demand. Champions League football. That's top 4 or always top 5 with the English teams.
Well, what we do know is now it is official. The Tudor reign will begin with the North London derby a week tomorrow.
Over the next hour, we'll be discussing Tottenham, Arsenal, the most unlikely of title races in Scotland, and the secrets of Great Britain's Dr. Ice as well. With us this morning, still the broadcaster and commentator Jackie Oatley, the Sunday Times chief football correspondent Jonathan Northcroft, and ESPN football journalist Julien Laurent. Let's have a look into the second hour of the show. We will start with Tottenham Hotspur, who sacked Thomas Frank a little bit earlier this week, and Igor Tudor is the man to take over for the remaining 12 games of this Premier League season. We'll come to you first, Jules, given that you've finished turning your nose up at the quality of the pastries. It's so famous over so many years, but a Frenchman not impressed there. This is what is there on the back of The Sun this morning. Tottenham confirmed Igor Tudor as their interim boss as club chiefs took a swipe at sacked Thomas Frank. Martin Lipton has in his piece. Part of that statement says his mandate is straightforward: bring intensity, organisation and a competitive edge to the squad at a decisive stage of the campaign. Was it the right decision, firstly then, Jules, to get rid of Thomas Frank and replace him?
Yeah, for me it was. It was probably 2 months too late, because I think it was pretty obvious from very early on in the season that Thomas Frank was out of his depth and at Spurs, and that he never really made a step up from Brentford to Tottenham, with everything that moving to a bigger club involves, really, in terms of the pressure, the expectation, what you expect from your players, from the fans, and more importantly, probably what the players expect from you as a Spurs manager compared to Brentford players would expect as a Brentford coach. And I don't think he just ever had that. And I think what I like in Martin Lipton's piece is that if you want the complete extreme to Thomas Frank in terms of not so much what a success or trophies won, but in terms of organisation, structure, intensity and discipline, more importantly, and authority, that's Igor Tudor for you. They're going to work harder, that's for sure. It's going to be the rules. If you don't follow the rules, then you're out. Whereas for Thomas Frank, it was a little bit more of like, hey, everybody's the freedom, right? And that was the problem with that dressing room. For me, Thomas Frank never had the authority to drive that dressing room forward, which Igor Tudor will have.
Are Spurs in a relegation battle?
Well, I guess they are in theory because of the direction of travel. I mean, the stat that really stands out for me is the fact they've won one home game in the Premier League since the opening day of the season when they beat Burnley. That is truly extraordinary. So it's a real shame it didn't work out for Thomas Frank. I think all the reports that we read at the start of the season about the change of culture, and it was also positive about what he was doing off the field. And it was just a combination of factors, wasn't it, in terms of injuries. And ultimately, he didn't look comfortable in the job. He didn't look comfortable in front of the media, which he always had been previously at Brentford. And it just makes me laugh in reference to what you're saying just now about a different type of manager they brought in. It's a bit like, you know, when we go from an ex-boyfriend or partner to the new one, you might go for somebody who's completely opposite to your previous one. I mean, my ex-fiancé is completely different to my husband. And slightly extreme version, but but that's kind of what football clubs do so often. I thought it's a slightly pointed kind of press release, really. It was a little unkind towards Thomas Frank. I think it was pointed in the sense they really wanted to reach out to the supporters and say, hey, this is what we need now, we recognise it and we're going to get it. But maybe they didn't need to have the dig at Thomas Frank, which is effectively what they did.
They did. The shades that the Igor Tudor appointment is also a kind of sop message to the supporters. You know, when fans are angry and they don't see character or effort in their minds or intensity on the pitch, give them a strong manager who's going to make them run. And Forrest actually did that with Sean Dyche, which appeased the fans for about 10 minutes. So, I mean, Tudor's got to win because he's not there to be the building manager. He's not there for the project. All of that said, you know, nice guy as he was, Thomas Frank just didn't step up the job as Jules articulated. For me, the two big things with Spurs was when I watched the Thomas Frank team, and I always thought, what's their plan to score a goal here? What's their plan to create a chance? It just seemed to be such a bland, sort of functional team that just didn't play in any way like a Tottenham team really should do. And then it was his comms, you know, he always spoke about the long term. He always spoke as if, you know, patience will solve everything and stick with me, because in 6 years' time, we're going to build something. And again, that's not the reality of being at a big club. So Tudor's a complete lurch away from that short-term appointment, boyfriend till the end of the season, as it were.
Holiday fling, mate.
Holiday fling, exactly, holiday romance. It's intriguing because the record is there. Jules and I was speaking about what he did at Marseille, which if he can repeat that at Spurs is great. The big question is he hasn't managed or even played in the Premier League. And we know the Premier League's got several things that are just different in terms of its conditions. So that's a risk here. The profile's nice from a Spurs point of view, but the guy, and I don't want to get all Mike Bassett and you have to know English football. But coming at the Premier League's not easy for anyone, player or coach, in those initial months, and that's the thing that he's got to handle.
And the number of interviews you have to do, just the volume of media commitments you have.
His English is decent, but the back three, for example, this is a very dogmatic coach with the back three, 99%, I think. I think there's 120 games with back three and 4 games in his whole managerial career with the back four. Back three in England, why not? But we saw Amorim not really working out. Okay, Glasner, Palace, yes and no. Is he going to keep the back three, considering right now he only has Van de Ven and Romero?
They don't have a place for a back three.
Exactly. So what are you going to do? At least he's got, 10 days now, or a week now between the North London derby, which is his first game. There's no better way for him to win over the fans, obviously, if they win that at home against Arsenal. But it's a hell of a first game to start with. It will be for any manager, including the best of the best. So good luck to him. But certainly for the fans, it will be very different to what they've seen from Thomas.
Just what you said, though, is interesting about you do things my way or you clear off. Well, I think you'd argue that some players would think, you're here for 12 games, mate. I'm going to outlast you. And that you shouldn't be, but that could be the attitude of certain players.
True, although there's the Champions League, maybe as the carrot, is that what you say? To get that motivation. And there's also, Jackie was right, they are in the relegation battle, but not really. They can't go down, let's be honest here. I don't think they would go down. There's a bit of that. And I think from a club's point of view, if that's the mindset of some players, if you're Vinay at the top or Johan Lange, the sporting director, or whoever, you say, hang on, right now you're earning your place for the next cycle, which is very likely going to be Pochettino. If you don't perform well under Tudor is not going to be there next season, but if you don't perform well the next 4 months, you'll be out of the door for the next manager and that next cycle. So I think they will have something to play for everybody, even if they don't respond well to his authority.
Is there any danger of, and I suppose danger might be the wrong word given what the consequence would be, of Tudor becoming a little bit Carrick, and that if he wins a load of games, then we're all saying, well, he's not going to be here next year. If he wins 7 out of 12 Premier League games and they get to the semi-finals of the Champions League, maybe he will be here next year.
Yeah, and his track record, I think 8 of his 11 jobs have been taking over in the middle of the season, and then in all of those jobs he hasn't lasted when he's stayed in the next season if he's made it. That'll be the test for the Tottenham hierarchy. Have they got a clear plan at this point in time? I have my doubts.
Jules has told us now it's all right to sack a manager every 20 minutes. You've got to embrace the new era, Johnny.
But at least that's Marinakis' identity, isn't it? I mean, Spurs were supposed to be different. Thomas Frank was supposed to be the building appointment. He wasn't sacked overnight in the sense that they thought about it for a long time. And I would have expected perhaps more of a strategy and a plan for when they did eventually press the button. Again, we're talking about this, but Igor Tudor rather seems to be a Paratici appointment, the co-sporting director who left before Christmas. So they seem to have gone back to something that was recommended by a guy that's no longer at the club. I might be wrong.
No, it is.
But for Spurs, the Champions League is another part of this that blows my mind. They're in the last 16 of the Champions League. They've got a chance. I'm not saying they've got a chance of winning it, but you've got a chance of doing something. And for me, a permanent appointment, a ready-made answer for when Thomas Frank went, and something that would give them a chance in that competition would have made more sense to me. This just seems short-term, might work, might keep them up, but they shouldn't be in this position.
It's like Croatian Big Sam, but without the Premier League experience, isn't he?
Croatian Big Sam, wow. I just want to come back to reference one of Tottenham's former managers. Harry Redknapp also has a piece today where he talks about how he turned things around at Spurs. He said, the first thing I did was lift the spirits of Luka Modric and Gareth Bale. Sadly, there is not Luka Modric and Gareth Bale to work with this time around. Let's talk about another former Spurs manager and also continue your theme for the morning of Jackie of bringing our relationship history into deciding on football managers. Is there a danger that Maurizio Pochettino is like the ex-partner that you have who you always remember it being so brilliant, but maybe it wouldn't be if you got back together?
You just feel the whole vibe around Spurs and Spurs fans has been unfinished business with Poch. He's not loved in the United States the way he is still at Tottenham. And yes, he didn't have that experience of lifting a major trophy, although he came incredibly close with that Champions League final. And It's the way supporters feel about a manager that can count for so much. He has, of course, gone away and got so much more experience since then, trophy-winning experience. And in the United States, I was checking in with a lot of colleagues because I work out there, and they're talking about how they're just not judging him till the World Cup. It's all on the World Cup. And then he's got a hugely intensive summer coming. The pressure on him to deliver in what is an enormous country, an enormous tournament with so many more teams as well, they have to perform. That if they do then recruit Pochettino, what kind of state is he going to be in for the start of next summer? He's going to be absolutely...
And when does he get to Spurs for pre-season, more to the point?
Well, he's going to be exhausted. And we forget about this. We think the manager can finish there and then start the next day there. He's going to be so drained. We've all talked to managers at the end of major tournaments, up close and personal, even in the bar afterwards. They are completely...
Speak for yourself, Jack.
Well, they are completely shot, and have to drag themselves off the floor to recover. So, yes, can see him going there. But I do worry about the lack of gap and going straight from one intense job to another.
The other point about Pochettino and the success he had first time round at Tottenham is probably had prime Harry Kane, although Harry Kane's prime has been about a decade. Prime Son, Alderweireld, Jan Vertonghen, Dele Alli, Hugo Lloris probably at his best too. That's not what he's inheriting this time around.
No, I think it's a different job to the first stint.
Harder.
Yeah, harder certainly, because it's more of a rebuilding job this time round, whereas the other one was to make those young players very good, and that's exactly what he is, and he's very good at that, to be fair. So I think this one is probably more challenging without that, but also probably more exciting for him, because he will only come back if they give him the full powers, which he will get, I think, in terms of deciding on the structure. Because this club, the issue, and Thomas Frank, we like him, we don't like him, the squad might be good enough or not, the injuries. But the problems at Spurs go deeper than just who's on the bench anyway.
Yeah. Which probably leads into to Alison Rudd's piece in your paper, Johnny. The most desirable, hireable coach in the world right now, it has to be Thomas Frank, which begs the question, is the issue at Tottenham not the manager? Clearly, in Ali's thoughts, that is very much the case, and that there are issues above that mean that the manager in different ways has a hand tied behind his back, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it's a beautifully written piece, as you get with Ali. I'm not sure if Thomas Frank's the most desirable manager in world football at the moment, but I do get the point that you got to look outside just what he did and think of what happened to Ange over a 2-year period, and think of what's happened over the longer period, Conte and Mourinho, and the short-lived Nuno appointment. You know, it's a club that since Poch has been wondering who it is, what it should be aiming for, and you know, Ange chose this week to break his silence on the Spurs job. And when you digest some of the things that he was saying, that you know, it's not a big club in terms of how it acts. It thinks it's a big club, but it doesn't pay the wages to get the best players. That he said, you know, the Spursy thing does still exist. It is a thing. There's a lack of belief that they can win.
But ultimately, and this is a question I asked last week, is that the primary objective of those at the top of Spurs to win? Or are they quite happy it being a very successful business, and if we add the odd trophy along the way, that's a little bit of a bonus?
So the whole criticism of Daniel Levy was that he was much more interested in having the best stadium, best training ground, best business plan, and growing his investment than he was in winning. But this is the post-Daniel Levy era. This is supposed to be a slightly different Spurs. The Lewis family are in control, and it's supposed to be more about, I think, winning and doing something for the fans. I'm not sure. I mean, I think one thing that Ange said that was really interesting was, he said Harry Kane is the best player he's ever worked with, ever seen. And being at Spurs, he said, made him realise that maybe Harry Kane has papered over cracks, or did paper over cracks at Tottenham for a number of years, actually. You know, that actually, if you take him away, what would the post-Pochettino years have even looked like? They might have been a lot similar to where Spurs are at the moment, which is not even mid-table. The whole club needs a direction, reboot, identity, and a coach to take it forward, which, if Poch gets
it's the Arteta Arsenal kind of project. You know, when he arrived, it's very similar Arsenal were never 16th or 17th or whatever. But the idea is the same. You need somebody now with whom you can build the restructure around him and just let him lead that project like Arsenal and the Cronkies did.
But that is that very difficult balancing act, isn't it, where Johnny was talking about the manager who had been in situ, Thomas Frank, saying, give us time. And Arteta had that. And there were certainly moments under Arteta where you thought, I'm not sure where this is going. And eventually, it's looking like it was the right decision to stick with him.
Yeah, but from the outside, it maybe looked like that. I think within the club, they knew that he was the right guy to take that project forward. And Vinay Venkatesan, who was there, he's the one who hired Arteta Arsenal. He's now in charge of that next chapter for Spurs. And it has to be that. He has to be somebody who you give the keys basically to the whole project and say, you have 5, 6, 7 years, even if the first 2 seasons you finish 7th, 8th, it doesn't matter. We know that, we need the money of the Champions League. It would be great if we could. But Mikel Arteta and Arsenal didn't get Europe before, at the start anyway of his tenure there. So you have to also be patient as long as you've got the right guy in place or you believe internally that is the guy that is going to take you forward.
I think, and the thing with Arteta was from the start he left us in no doubt that he was there to win. That's his character. He's intense and he's driven, and that was there from the start. And that was something for fans and the club to hang on to. In the situation of Frank, it seemed to be, let's see if we can build and get to the middle of the table and then get a bit higher. And that's a different type of messaging. So you can have a project manager that you stick with if they are that rallying figure, if they've got that strength of character, which I guess, again, leads us back to the Poch option.
Good evening, everyone. Hope you're well. We'll take a show of hands for questions, please. We'll set an embargo for 10:30 p.m. on Sunday evening. Someone start, please, Jamie. Got any mics? No? Yeah.
No. After 2-0. We didn't read the spaces where they were. Always the spaces in attack, it depends on how they defend, and we didn't read it. We spent a lot of time to make the process a little bit quicker and better. That was the only good news that we go through. That's all.
What a problem tonight that mentally they thought.
Well, listen, it would be nice for me to say, yeah, mentally we're exhausted, we're tired. We have been the tough 2-3 weeks for many reasons, but it's our job. We have to do what you have to do. If the calendar said to play every single day, 9 players fresh, it's just we didn't read where were the spaces, and that's why everything was flat and was slow and it was not good.
Rob?
You must be happy that John Stones, after being out for so long, has managed to get an hour in his legs.
Absolutely. Absolutely, he's back. Still need time. Not the John Stones that we knew, but it's normal. After 2 months and a half, play 60 minutes, and his body language was really good. In terms of the presence, aggressivity, of course, still it's normal that they have the tempo, to fight the duels and this kind of stuff. That it happened after more than 2 months injured, but it's important that play 60 minutes, 65 minutes. That's good.
Ryan Kennedy came on with quite short notice, but he fit into the game very well. What did you think of his performance?
After 2-0 was really good. Before it was a little bit shy. And Exeter was aggressive and he was a little bit shy. But it's a question of the process. 70 years old, 80 years old. So it's normal. But we didn't make the process to get the balls, Ryan, in better conditions to make his incredible quality, the 1-against-1. So when the team is so tight and they shoot one side, the ball has to go quick to the opposite side. And we were so slow to go to the opposite side.
Jess?
Do you feel like the players need a break, or will you give them one now?
The manager, the first, needs a break. Why we don't go home, all of us, right? James, you will need a break too, right? You cannot imagine. You and me. You know it's not true. The important is they know it. How much we love each other. Tell me. Sorry. No, the question is important one. Tell me, sorry. No, have been tough on them, but not just, I would say, the 2 weeks. Since November, it's every 3 days, 4 days, 3 days, 4 days, so it's a lot. And of course, today I had to fresh, but I know they want it. It's just we didn't read what we should do, and sometimes happen, So it's not. I know how to defend my players. They said that maybe I didn't transmit where we should do to be more, fluid. When a team is so tight and high, you have to drop them for the sides. And of course, I understand with Max Allen, cannot drop them. With the left side, Ryan really a bit better. But it won't happen with Makiro. You can do it more, but it's not the point. So the point is when the ball is in the left, they are tight because the holding midfielder don't jam and they are high. You are in the left, one of the 3-4 players in that sector, in that place, had to put the ball quick to the opposite side and drop them. And it happened after 2-0. So that is the reason why the game was boring.
Just at the back.
I was just wondering, what it was like playing a game without any VAR. Was it more enjoyable? The goal went in and celebrate it.
Better, worse? So I don't know. To be honest, I don't know. I'm in the phase of my life that I don't have opinions for everything. So I don't know. Sometimes I think before it was better, but sometimes I think with VAR the technology should help us to be more fair game. So to be honest, I don't know.
We'll set a bugger there for 10:30 p.m. on Sunday. Jack.
Microphone check. It's so expensive.
I asked you about Rodri, because obviously the news came out yesterday after you'd done your press conference. Do you know what the club are going to sort of say to him?
No idea. No. Wait. We don't finish, Jack. No idea. Tell me.
Jack, go.
In your view, like, what do you think about it? Do you think in the sort of heat of the moment he's gone over the top with what he said, or is he?
Absolutely, we respect the decisions for which department punish Rodri?
The FA.
The FA. We will accept the decision of VA. We accept everything. What the big hierarchies decide what we have to behave and what we have to do.
Simon?
You've got a week to rest up. Any chance Jeremy got back?
He's close. Still didn't train with us, so we will see. But it's a little bit better. We played really good in the last games, but today this type of games we need wingers. And we have just one with Antoine Semenyo, and Antoine with a lot of minutes. So if you make quick shifts with the Docus, with Semenyos, with Savios, the guys, the opponent defending the 80-yard box 90 minutes. And we didn't have, and the shift was slow, and when we were right there, we could not drop them. That's why everything was so difficult.
To the back.
Sorry? They defend so well. Big credit to them. I said to Carl, so apart that I think over every defensive system you have the key of the weapon to break them. A part of that, the resilience, they were there. At the end, the 2-0 go down, more tired, they have more chances at the end, but they were really good, really good.
You said a couple of minutes ago that the last 2 or 3 weeks have been difficult for various reasons. Can you just expand on that? Is it just
no games every 3 days, the schedule, and you know, in the Premier League, if you lose a game, we are out, and yeah, so have been so demanding, especially for the lack of recovery. And now, but you know, players are back. Rodri is playing minutes. You know, is playing minutes and not a step back. Now we have a long week to do it, and you know, play a step by step is coming back. Savio's when Savio will learn to make a finished product in terms of assists, will be unbelievable winger on both sides, and Doku's, you know how important it is, and you know, to break teams like Salford or teams like Defend Deep, proper guys like have ability to dribble, to drop them, to be there, help us a lot in our way we want to play. So, but I'm more than delighted that how the team behave. Even today the game was not good. It's not necessary to be a manager to realize that it was not good. I had the feeling that I'm really pleased for how we behaved lately, and what I said, now take a break, don't think, but on Wednesday afternoon I wanna see you ready, focus to prepare. When you arrive in the last 3 months and a half, the end of the season, we've been in competitions, every game is a final. To leave that we'll lose a game is out, no chance. Final is not Carabao Cup, just Arsenal, there's every single game is a final, so we have to leave. Because now, yeah, it's already in March, the sky will be more blue, the weather will be better, and everything will be, you know, our mood will be. In that moment, it's important to be there, and the team will be ready. I know that, guys, and I know that we'll do it well.
Martin.
Halfway through the second half, is he all right?
He's right.
How do you feel about his form at the moment?
I'm the big admirer for Phil, and I'm pretty sure that today, like Ryan Cherky, like Tijani, like Phil, didn't involve in playing good because the process or read what we should do, we didn't do that. That is the only reason why. So I'm not judge one player because I played that, no. We should move better the 4 guys behind, like it's Rico and Nico and John and Kusa. When the ball is one side, bring the ball quick to the opposite side. These guys who have produced there, because have an incredible energy, incredible passion to play and do it. So play bad, no. But sometimes with the way we played, the players that play in that position up front, we need better process. And today was not good.
Last one with Rob, thank you.
He's injured for 6-8 weeks. That means 2 months is a lot of time. Now he's in the arch for 6 weeks. Could play a few minutes, but we don't want to take risk. And step by step. For example, train 2 days ago with us, it was, wow. Plays so good in the training. So, yeah, great. Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Ciao, guys. Don't miss me so much, huh?
We've had a change of European football expert, and Dougie Critchley joins us. And frankly, it's his attitude and application and ability to pick up the phone and answer an email quickly, which is one of the many reasons that I rate the man in your picture right now. Dougie, great to have you with us on Total Football. Thank you so much. How surprised are you by this appointment?
Well, I think maybe like myself, it's a little bit left field for this appointment, a bit of a last minute. No, I'm only joking. It's an interesting appointment from Spurs. I don't think many people necessarily saw it coming. Of course, Fabio Paratici, who has been at the club, although isn't currently at the club, has experience with Juventus over the last few years. Igor Tudor did a pretty solid job picking up at the end of last season, securing Champions League football for Juventus, just 1 point ahead of Roma. Prior to that with Lazio, nearly made the Coppa Italia final before losing to Juventus in that semi-final. So he's been in really intense environments. Juventus, the most successful club domestically in Italian football history. Lazio, it's a very, very hot-headed environment at points. That rivalry with Roma, absolutely massive. He'll need that experience going into that North London derby the weekend after this. And then at Marseille, he led them to their best points tally of the last 7 years. This is the 6th country that he's managed in. He's never lasted more than 78 games at a single club. But as Bridgie points out, it's not really about the long term. This is short term, get Spurs away from this relegation battle. They're only 5 points clear as it stands. And Igor Tudor has experience with steadying ships and righting seasons.
And at big clubs with big stadiums like Juve, like Lazio, like that Stade Velodrome for Marseille, but there's no English club on his CV, Dougie. Is that a concern?
From what I've read and the interviews that I've seen, he's got very good English, which will be, absolutely essential to get his message across to the players. So that is a slight worry, I would say, as well. But when you have so much experience and as a player as well with Croatia, a number of caps there as well, I think the players will respect him. And coming in off back of a pretty disastrous spell from Thomas Frank, where he was, much talked about in terms of the next cab off the rank in terms of getting a job at a big club, and it never quite worked. And supposedly the players reportedly didn't really necessarily believe in his methods by the end, and maybe thought he was a little bit too negative and maybe showed a little too much credit and kindness to rivals, not least complimenting Arsenal so much in the build-up to their humbling when Eze scored that hat-trick. So if Igor Tudor goes in with the right attitude, what is also quite interesting is that in the vast majority of his jobs, he's played 5 at the back, which is a system that Thomas Frank kind of reverted to in his final few weeks, and was a system that a lot of Spurs fans were calling for, given that they do have a number of very high quality centre-backs. But as Bridgie points out as well, it's going to be difficult for any manager with the amount of absentees. Solanke, Kulusevski and Maddison between them this season started just 4 league games. So I do have a certain amount of sympathy for Thomas Frank, but Igor Tudor comes in with it all on the line, really. It's unthinkable that Spurs, having won the Europa League last year, could be relegated down to the Championship. The 3 previous winners of the Europa League amongst English sides this century have all finished in the top 3 and used it as a springboard for success. Spurs, it's been quite the opposite.
Dougie, you mentioned the formation, so I'm really interested to see. He's only got probably about 11, 12 senior first-team players when he goes to training on Monday. But when Romero is back, where do you see? Do you see 3 centre-halves maybe with Romero, Van de Ven on that left centre? Then left back, Destiny Udogi's out for 4 weeks. Pedro Porro will probably come into that side on the right. Can you think of the 11, João Paulinho? What influence would he have?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, Christian Romero in his Atalanta days played in that central defensive role at Atalanta in the middle of a back 3 and used that aggression that he has in his game, which came a little bit too far during that game against Man United, to step out of defence and make interjections and clean up the ball and then drive forward. It feels like a system that would also suit Mickey van der Ven, and the fact that he's potentially a much better driver with the ball from deep than necessarily a natural passer. Destiny Udogi, who, as you mentioned, is injured, but has played this system in the past at Udinese. Pedro Porro, I think most Spurs fans would probably say at his best, which he hasn't been this season, is a much better attacking player than necessarily a defender, where he is prone to lapses in concentration. Xavi Simons has played in the 3 at the back system at RB Leipzig, and one of those inverted sort of number 10 roles would suit him really well. And after a really difficult start to the season, he's really built into the campaign over the last few weeks as well. Dominic Solanke, I think, has got a skill set that could bring a number of different players into play in a 5 at the back system as well. So the ingredients are there. It's just there aren't that many ingredients. They are so short on numbers as it stands. The good thing is that they are coming up against an Arsenal side that would have played again in the FA Cup this weekend, whereas Spurs have a long break, so Igor Tudor can get to the training ground. And after a campaign that has seen them play so much football already, most English sides that have been in Europe, such busy schedules, there's been very little time on the training ground to get Thomas Frank's ideas across. Igor Tudor has a nice, clean break up until that North London derby.
So I guess, Dougie, if we're making a link to his experience within Italian football, this is more sort of margarita pizza football, with your basic ingredients in it, your tomato and your cheese on the base, then it's going to be anything too kind of arty or sophisticated. But I actually just sort of wonder, look, related to the tactics, the personnel, right? What's more important for Igor Tudor now? To try and fit tactics to the existing personnel in this injury-ravaged Tottenham Hotspur squad, or is it his man management skills to motivate those fit players he does have?
think a little bit of both. I think it's a good question, though. I think, you know, the fact that Frank has used this system that he's most likely to use in the last few weeks, that should necessarily help. But for me, it's been laxes in concentration. It's been a lack of leadership. I think it's far too easy to just lay all the blame at the board or Thomas Frank for Spurs' current situation. You know, results, particularly in the league, and you might say that they were focusing on the Europa League last year, weren't a lot better under Ange Postecoglou. There's been a number of different managers with various levels of experience. Some, Antonio Conte, who won the league last year with Napoli. He's involved in another title challenge this year. There's Jose Mourinho, a serial winner. So many different managers of different philosophies, of different CVs and credibility have all struggled at Spurs. So it's a big ask for Igor Tudor to come in and oversee a massive upturn in results instantly. But the good thing for him is that the bar is quite low and results, given the fact that Forest and West Ham have dropped points where they potentially could have won in the last few weeks. You know, Forest having 35 shots against Wolves earlier this week, drawing that game. West Ham throwing away that lead against Chelsea. Things could have been even tighter for Igor Tudor arriving right now. There is that buffer. And to be honest, you look at the playing quality in that Spurs squad, and I do expect them to pull away from relegation. So hopefully with Igor Tudor at the helm, he can oversee a quick upturn in results, because they certainly need to.
I'm not going to mention names, but I think a few players might need a rocket up them. Is Igor Tudor that kind of head coach? Because I don't think a lot of the players I don't think they really related massively to Thomas Frank, whereas I think they loved...
He was too nice, supposedly, wasn't he? That's the thing, he's a lovely guy, but...
Oh, he is, but
yeah. To command authority in the dressing room,
possibly.
Richie.
I mean,
to command authority...
He'll disagree with us totally, but there was something not right there. 2 players, or 3, wished him well. And I'm sorry, but you do have to look at things like that now in this day and age. Will Igor Tudor grab Romero, for example, say, stop getting sent off, you're our captain? Just Romero as one example. Kolo Muani, there's one. That's the key, isn't it, Doogie? Because there's a good player there, but Spurs fans have only seen it once or twice this season.
Yeah, absolutely. I think his level of performance has been really disappointing. I think, you know, given the expectations when he arrived at PSG from Eintracht Frankfurt for 90 million euros a few seasons ago, and yes, he didn't really get an opportunity at PSG. They signed so many forwards at a similar time, then goes on loan to Juventus, and now is at Spurs. Haven't seen enough of him, aside from a couple of games, particularly against PSG, where he actually played pretty well. Odegaard has shown glimpses this season as well, but Spurs' signings over the last few years, as you know only too well, Archie Gray, Bergvall, Tell, really high promising players, but there's a lack of experience in this squad, there's a lack of leadership. You say about giving a rocket to Romero, I'd also probably take away his phone as well. I don't think any social media announcements are what the squad need right now. It needs to be knuckling down, getting on with business. And Igor Tudor, from what I've heard, is a much more relaxed character and quite a chilled sort of persona, maybe a little bit more detached in a sort of Ange Postecoglou style, rather than the arm around the shoulder that Thomas Frank did and seemed, as David sort of said or intonated, to maybe a little too nice for the role. But huge ask for him, but he does have experience, as I say, at Juventus, at Lazio, of getting an instant upturn in results. And I don't think he'll mind the fact that he's got, 12 games or so up until the end of the season, and then see what happens from there.
We were chatting earlier, Dougie, to Patrick Kendrick, who's an Italian football expert joining us on Total Football, and he was saying that actually he's not afraid to use his voice, not just in the scenario of the dressing room and being that figure of authority and leadership amongst the players, but also to the board, to the hierarchy. And there was a situation where at the end of the season, having got Juve back into the Champions League places and finishing there, that they were not sure what to do with Igor Tudor, whether to give him the job full-time. And what he did was give them an ultimatum and say, look, I'll only lead this team to the Club World Cup and do that if you give me the job full-time. Now, ultimately, it didn't work out, but he got what he wanted. Do you think that might be a little bit of a concern for Spurs, that you've got this character who isn't, afraid to talk to authority like that?
Yes, although I think it is a slightly different situation at Juventus than at Spurs, given that he played for Juventus in the past. He was assistant manager under Andrea Pirlo as well. So he probably felt like, you guys know what I am, you guys know what I'm about, you guys know my capabilities. this is the time to back me. And in the summer, they did ultimately make the decision to back him. They signed a number of players that were on loan there last year, which kind of tied them up financially, but they still did invest huge wages into Jonathan David from Lille, into Lois Openda, who arrived from RB Leipzig. Edinger Grover was signed permanently, Michel Di Gregorio, Lloyd Kelly, the former Bournemouth and Newcastle defender as well. Results were disappointing, I think most Juventus fans would say. Kenan Yildiz was really the only shining bright light of their first half of the season. And Luciano Spalletti, since arriving there, replacing Tudor, has kind of overshone him with a similar squad. So that isn't the most promising thing. But I think in terms of what happens in the summer will be a different conversation. And he may well feel that he's entitled to ask for whatever he wants in the summer if he rights the ship and maybe progresses a little bit further in the Champions League. I don't think most observers would think that Spurs have much of a chance of going further than the quarterfinals, but you never know. You never know. There's always a dark horse in the competition. After finishing fourth, they can carry a lot of confidence with their Champions League form. But I just don't think he's in a position to be demanding too much right now, and Spurs won't want to look too far ahead. They've got so many managerial appointments seemingly pretty wrong. It's a massive summer of investment. You saw Ange Postecoglou on a famous podcast yesterday talking about the transfer targets that he was suggesting and that he didn't necessarily feel backed enough. Spurs have to get this summer recruitment right and build no matter who is the manager, whether it's Tudor or not.
England next, because Thomas Tuchel has ended speculation over his long-term future by signing a contract extension as England head coach. His current deal was due to end after this summer's World Cup finals, but Tuchel will now lead England until the 2028 Euros, which of course will be a home tournament.
It's amazing. I mean, the feedback on a daily basis when you go food shopping or you have a coffee and cab drivers and like just fans on the street like push you. And I mean, I was a Chelsea coach at the time when the Euros were played in different countries, and it was of course also played in Wembley Stadium, and I felt the excitement in the country, and it felt so different from what I experienced. Felt almost like in my childhood days. Everyone was excited, everyone was rooting for the team, everyone was pushing, and it was such a positive vibe in the country. And I remember calling my manager and telling him about that, and I said, "Wow, this is my dream. I wanna win as many titles as possible with Chelsea, and then let's try to become English national coach." And he answered along the lines like, "Hey, yeah, it's nice. I know how much you love it. This will not happen. That's not very likely to happen." And I'm very sure that he was wrong, and we could prove him wrong. And yeah, so support is great. Support will be even greater once we arrive in the big tournaments. I know how it feels. I was there when the Euros were played in Wembley. To be now in charge, it's just an amazing opportunity, and we will put all the effort in to make everyone proud.
Well, the FA's Chief Executive Mark Bullingham added this. Thomas is a winner who's achieved on the biggest stages, a winner who loves English football and is enjoying the rhythm of the international game after all his club success. Feedback from our players on his coaching and support team has been excellent, both on and off the pitch. And he goes on, some will ask, why not wait until after the World Cup? The reality is that for any fixed-term role in any industry, people will consider their future prior to its ending. We have a world-class coach doing a great job, and the opportunity arose to secure him for a further tournament. We have taken that opportunity, and now everyone has clarity, as we have previously had heading into major tournaments. Well, you can see alongside Dean and myself, our chief correspondent, Kaveh Solokol, has joined us. Hi there, Kaveh. So, firstly, any surprise that Tuchel wants to extend his stay with England?
It is a little bit surprising because most people think the England job is the impossible job, but he's loving life. He really enjoys the job. But I say it's surprising because he could really have his pick of some of the biggest jobs in club football potentially this summer. So he could have just waited, gone to the World Cup with England, and then who knows, he could have been the next Manchester United manager, the next Real Madrid manager. The Bayern Munich job could become available. Manchester City job could become available as well. So it's a little bit surprising from his perspective. Obviously, he thinks that club football is something that he can go back to in the future. And it's a little bit surprising from the FA's point of view as well, because we've been down this road before with the FA, where they've given managers new contracts just before tournaments, and then it hasn't worked out, for instance, with Fabio Capello in 2010. But I think it was a risk for the FA, whatever they did, if they gave him a new contract, if they didn't give him a new contract, because if they hadn't given him a new contract, the summer would be dominated by people like me asking Tuchel and his players about his future. Had he spoken to Manchester United? Did he fancy the Spurs job? Was he going to go to Real Madrid? So the FA have just dealt with that distraction once and for all, and they know that they've got one of the best managers in the world until 2028.
Dean, what would you say is the minimum requirement for England at this summer's World Cup finals if Thomas Tuchel is to carry on for another couple of years to Euro 28?
I mean, that's personal preference, isn't it? It's what you really deem as genuine success, or how you see enjoying the tournament as an England fan, doesn't it? I think under Southgate, what he gave us was that genuine hope of winning the tournament. Now, it didn't happen in those one-off finals, and I'm as disappointed as anybody that didn't happen. But within my lifetime, that's actually not the norm. So to go deep in the tournament, I think is and we're talking semi-final and final, that's deep now for England. I think that's probably what everyone would see as a minimum. You can't say he's got to win the World Cup. You just can't. It's just, there's so many other great teams. They're ranked 4th in the FIFA World Ranking, so they shouldn't go into it favourites. I think from his perspective, of course he's loving life. I mean, the money he's on is incredible. He hasn't got the stresses and strains as he's watching managers get fired left, right and centre in the Premier League and the day-to-day that goes with it. His record's been magnificent. The teams they've played, of course he's enjoying it. Yeah, I'll have another 2 years. Thank you very much. I think, but also from the FA's perspective, with the jobs that are clearly going to be available in the summer, they've got a great coach. I think they are excited about what he's already done. So why wouldn't you try and keep him for another tournament? And really, you'd want to give a manager more than just the sort of year and a half and one tournament to really build something, as Southgate did.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right, and it does seem like he is loving life. I spoke to him earlier this year, and you really get the sense of how much he is enjoying the job, not just because of the qualifying campaign being perfect, but how much he really loves working with these players and how much he's looking forward to this challenge. You can really sense that sort of excitement bubbling away. Just wants to get to that World Cup. But in terms of, the club picture, Carve, especially in Europe, do you think the big European clubs will be disappointed that Tuchel isn't available?
I'm not sure they'll be disappointed, because I think a lot of managers will potentially be available this summer. I think Manchester United supporters will be disappointed. A lot of the United fans I've spoken to were saying that he is their number one target. He would be their dream new manager. I think the ship has kind of sailed with Tuchel and United. He held talks with them a couple of years ago when Erik ten Hag had just won the World Cup, and there was talk that they were going to sack him. Before they gave him a new contract, he actually had face-to-face talks with United, but they weren't able to agree terms. I think he'll certainly be back in club
he's young enough, isn't he?
Sooner rather than later. The other point I would make is we haven't seen his new contract. For all we know, it's got a break clause in it. For all we know, there's a release clause in it. Yeah. Maybe there's a clause in there that says it's something that both sides can look at after this World Cup as well. So if I was the president of Real Madrid, which unfortunately I'm not, but if I was and I was really, really desperate to get Thomas Tuchel, I'm sure I would find a way to at least give it a good go.
OK. Well, maybe if you perform well at the World Cup, then maybe you can have a chance of speaking to Florentino Perez.
To break a Premier League record by appointing their 4th permanent manager of the season. Former Wolves boss Vitor Pereira looks set to replace the sacked Sean Dyche. Let's go back live to Kirsty Edwards outside the City ground. Kirsty, sometimes these can be long hauls for reporters, but thankfully for you, it's moved very quickly. What can you tell us?
Yeah, well, it's about 14 and a half hours, isn't it, since we had that statement from Forest confirming the departure of Sean Dyche. They thanked him and his coaching team in quite a short statement. So they haven't hung around since then. Things have been moving at a pace. It's always looked likely that Vitor Pereira was the favourite to take over here. And he has agreed in principle to become the new head coach here at Nottingham Forest. Now, the finer details of any kind of contract, any kind of deal, still being worked on. So no official confirmation yet, and we won't necessarily get that today. While things have moved quickly, Forest not in any immediate rush because, of course, they're not in action this weekend. There were some highs and lows of the short time that Sean Dyche spent here as head coach. One of the lows was going out to Wrexham in the FA Cup, so that means that there'll be no game for Forest this weekend. However, they are in European action again next week. They've got the first leg of a playoff in the Europa League against Fenerbahce. That's away, that leg. So they would very much like somebody in charge, no doubt, to get the team ready for that. A very important game coming up for them in Europe next week. And it is not been confirmed, but edging ever closer, and it does look very likely that Vitor Pereira will be the fourth man in charge here at Nottingham Forest.
OK, Kirsty, why has Evangelos Marinakis opted for Pereira?
Well, first of all, they know each other. They've worked with each other previously. They have a relationship already. Vitor Pereira was at Olympiacos. He actually won the Greek Super League for Evangelos Marinakis. So he's won him some silverware in the past. They will know each other well in terms of that working relationship. And look, Forest needs somebody to come in and to be able to hit the ground running pretty quickly. They need to know the Premier League, and I think importantly, they could really do with knowing what it takes to get a club out of the situation that Forest are in right now. They are out of the relegation zone at the moment, but only by 3 points, and that's one of the reasons why Evangelos Marinakis decided to part ways with Sean Dyche. He was really hoping that by this stage they would be further away from that relegation zone. Now, when Vitor Pereira took over at Wolves, it was December 2024. They were second from bottom at that stage, and he took them on what was an incredible run. He got to work really quickly. He got a great team spirit going there. All the players knew exactly what they were doing, and some brilliant results he pulled out in that second half of the season. So from taking over in December with them second from bottom, he got them 17 points clear of the relegation zone by the end of the season. So I think, that is the kind of Vitor Pereira Forest will hope to see, not the Vitor Pereira that perhaps Wolves saw at the start of this season when things went pretty wrong before his departure. So I think that's, what Evangelos Marinakis is hoping to see. We know he's a man with big ambitions. He doesn't want them to just scrape by and scrape out of this relegation fight. He wants to see them moving up the table pretty quickly. But a big task for whoever comes in, looking likely to be Vitor Pereira. It all starts in terms of the Premier League action here at the City Ground a week on Sunday against Liverpool, no less. In the next up-and-coming games, they've also got games against Manchester City and against the likes of Spurs and Brighton, who are just above them in the Premier League table right now. So some big games coming up in the Premier League. They need to start scoring some more goals. 35 shots here at the City Ground last night, and they could not get that ball into the net. So he needs to get this team scoring more goals and moving away from this relegation zone. So ever closer. May not get a confirmation today. We'll wait to see. But Vitor Pereira has agreed to become the new head coach of Nottingham Forest. The finer details of the deal still being sorted.
Thank you very much, Kirsty.
For 18 months, ended the World Cup. Why have the FA decided to extend that contract, and why now?
Well, I think they're happy with the job that he's doing, and he's very happy with the job. And I think it makes sense to get this dealt with before the World Cup this summer, because the last thing the FA want is for Thomas Tuchel and the England players to continually have to face questions about Tuchel's future. Imagine if you had the situation in the USA next summer where Tuchel was constantly being asked about, have you spoken to United about the United job? Do you fancy the United job? If they asked the Man United players who are in the squad about whether they wanted Tuchel to be their club manager. That has all been dealt with now. Now it's a non-issue because everybody knows that Thomas Tuchel has signed a contract until 2028.
And in terms of Thomas Tuchel, the flip side of that is this summer there could be some pretty big jobs around. I mean, you mentioned Manchester United, Manchester City, Liverpool, Real Madrid possibly. Why would he want to commit his future to England now?
The simple answer to that is he loves the job. He loves life. He's very, very happy at the moment. I know most people think England is the impossible job, and he was probably a little bit cautious when he took on the job. I think it made sense for both sides for him just to have a contract for 18 months, see how it goes, see whether he enjoyed it, see whether the FA liked working with him, and everything's gone really, really well. And I think when he talks, you get a real sense of how proud he is to be the England manager. Even though he's German, he understands the prestige associated with that job. What an honour it is to lead England at a World Cup finals. What an honour it will be for him, hopefully, to lead England at a Euros in the UK as well. And I think he would have sat down and talked to his representatives and they would have said, look, I love life at the moment. Let's extend the contract. I know Man United, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, Manchester City, I'm still pretty young. I can do a job at England, hopefully try and win the World Cup, try and win the Euros, and then in the future, I can go back to club football. So that's why I think he's decided to recommit himself to England for at least the next 3 years, 2 years.
Clearly had a very good qualifying campaign. We talked earlier, England didn't even concede a goal, won all their games. The World Cup is a very, very different prospect. Sort of been here before, haven't we, with Capello and Sven, both given contract extensions. It didn't quite go to plan. So what happens if England maybe don't make it to where we all hope they'll make it, which is to lift the World Cup?
I mean, what, for instance, if they sort of go out in the group stages and
maybe
people
not the group stages because you'd expect
first knockout stage and people calling for his head and the media turn on him. We don't know what's inside that contract. Is there a release clause in the contract? Is there a break clause in the contract? Do we have a situation where sometime in the future Thomas Tuchel could go to the FA and say, you know what, this is not working out. I want to go back to club management. I've been offered the Real Madrid job. You know, football is football. Just because somebody's signed a new contract doesn't mean they're going to see that contract right through to the end. So I think we need to keep an open mind. But if you're an England fan, I think you'll be happy today that Thomas Tuchel has recommitted to the FA, because make no mistake, Thomas Tuchel is one of the best managers in the world right here, right now.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Kaveh.
The breaking news this morning, and that is that Sean Dyche has become the third manager to be sacked by Nottingham Forest this season following their goalless draw last night with Wolves. Dyche was in charge for just 114 days, 17 games. Forest announced his dismissal at midnight, 3 hours after that 0-0 draw. So at 12:31 this morning, Forest put out this statement on X saying Nottingham Forest Football Club can confirm that Sean Dyche has been relieved of his duties as head coach. We'd like to thank Sean and his staff for their efforts during their time at the club, and we wish them the best of luck for the future. We'll be making no further comments at this time. Well, following the game and before his sacking, Dyche faced questions over his future, and he accepted that his fate was out of his hands.
The owner's been fair to me, without a shadow of a doubt, fair on the situation. If anyone chooses to change in football now, that's their decision. You know, if people want change, we've all seen it, you know. People can demand change, and then it's up to owners whether they change or not. You know, I just work very hard. I care about this club. I've made that clear, side of my staff. I'm working very hard. I'm not saying the players are not, by the way, but we certainly are as a staff. That's what you do. You know, we work very hard. If the owner wants to make a change, then that's up to him, and that's the way football is now. You know, that's just the reality of it. But I'm not questioning the owner here. He's been absolutely fair with me from beginning to the end, and I've been fair with him and told him the truth every step of the way. Owners are owners. You know, they don't warm you up, you know, and go, by the way. You know what I mean? It just comes and it comes. That's the way it goes. I'm a realist. I understand. You know, the noise here has changed significantly since the last few games, and the only thing I'm frustrated at is it's not a terrible run. If you're on, you know, some of the teams I'm seeing in the Premier League, I'm winning like 14 games and stuff like that. And I'm going, well, Okay, but that's still the modern way football is. Demand is high. That's changed enormously in the last probably 2 years. Demand is getting higher and higher and higher and higher. Expectation immediately grows. Sign some players, expectation grows, etc., etc. That's just one example, but you get my point. So if people want change here and the owner wants to change, that is entirely up to him. But there's no lack of respect from me from the owner. He's been first class to me since I've been here. And if he wants to make a change, that is entirely up to him. And if the fans want to change, that's entirely up to them. All I do is work very, very hard at a club that I care about.
So Forest are 1 place, 3 points above the relegation zone. That's despite a relatively decent run of form recently. Just 1 defeat in their last 6 games, winning 2 of those. But West Ham's recent upturn has seen that gap with the bottom 3 narrow. And we mentioned that run of form. Dyche is actually one of the nominations for January's Premier League Manager of the Month, alongside Michael Carrick, Andoni Iraola and Liam Rosenior. And Forest are back in action in a week's time. The big question is, will they have found a replacement by the time they play Fenerbahce in the first leg of their Europa League playoff? That game kicks off a run of several huge fixtures for Forest, with games against Liverpool and Man City coming up as well. Well, here is the number of games that Evangelos Marinakis has given to each permanent manager in his time at the club. Dyche took charge of 17. Steve Cooper took charge of the most with 108. And Postecoglou the least, with just 8 matches in charge.
Good morning, everyone. It's our understanding that Thomas Frank has been sacked as Tottenham Hotspur head coach. More on that as we get it, but we can confirm, we understand Thomas Frank is no longer the Tottenham Hotspur head coach. He had still people who were supporting him over the last few weeks. They didn't want to make this decision, but I think it had become untenable. I felt last night that had to be it. It was a really bad atmosphere.
Poor performance.
Lost the fans, and I just felt last night there was no way back. They didn't want to do this, but I think it had to be done. They had to make a decision. They've got Arsenal in, 11 or 12 days' time. I mean, it's not the game anyone wants, but they have made a decision. Thomas Frank is no longer the Spurs head coach.
What was it like there, Michael, last night? Because I know that the fans have turned on Thomas Frank for quite some time. Was last night any worse than it has been over the last few weeks?
It wasn't a nice atmosphere. The Spurs PA announced Thomas Frank's name first. There was boos. He walked on the pitch at full time, boos, walked off. It happened a lot this season. Chelsea, and when Mickey van der Ven didn't acknowledge him, Jed Spence walking around clapping. Everyone likes to be at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, apart from the home fans at the moment. It's a great place, but it's not a great place if you're a home supporter at the moment. Someone said to me, Newcastle aren't very good away from home. Spurs aren't very good at home. And it wasn't much of a surprise last night. They will have to be talking now about a replacement, an interim, but...
Will it be an interim, definitely?
Well, definitely. Hopefully we'll get some information on that later. This is just broken. But whoever will be looking after the club in 11, 12 days' time against Arsenal will have a humongous amount of talent and players out. And they'll only have about 11 or 12 fit senior players to play.
We should just say, obviously, Sky Sports News were very, very polished, very ready for anything. But at the very top, just about 5 seconds to 10 o'clock when we were going on air for this show, Michael was ready to come on. Michael got that word, made the calls to check this story, because that's what we do here. And then we've got him on to do it. We really haven't got that much information at the moment, other than the big news that Thomas Frank has gone from Tottenham Hotspur. They have sacked him. Jay, in terms of who comes in, everyone's been chanting for Mauricio Pochettino's name, but that wouldn't be until the summer. What names would you put out there?
I mean, I heard Jamie O'Hara speak, and I completely agree. I think it should be someone like De Zerbi. But then, when De Zerbi comes in, he wants full control of everything. Transfers, he's got that kind of ego that he's not going to mess around. He's going to just phase people out if you've got a bad attitude. But I think someone like De Zerbi would be great for Tottenham. Obviously, Tottenham fans want to see attacking football. He brings that. He'll bring a philosophy. He's going to bring in certain players that he believes he can get the best out of as well. He done so well at Brighton. He done so well at Marseille. So I think that would be the one Tottenham should be looking at.
Well, let's get some fan reaction now. Chris Cowling joins us now. Chris, well, I was expecting to be asking you, do you expect Thomas Frank to go today? But a few moments ago, he did go. What's your initial reaction to the news?
Tom, J. Michael, good morning to you. It had to happen. I've been saying this for some time now. How long can it go on like this? And when you look at Thomas Frank's record at Spurs and you look at us now 16th in the Premier League, 5 points above the relegation zone, it simply could not go on like this. You know, he's managed Spurs 13 home games in the Premier League. We've heard boos from the Tottenham Hotspur supporters on 9 occasions, either at half-time and or at full-time. And things just couldn't go on like this. We don't seem to have any type of certain style of play, and it just seems to be really poor football this season, what we have seen. And, you know, Spurs need to be climbing up that Premier League table. And Opta put out a stat this morning stating that we've got more chance of relegation than finishing in the top 9, and this is not good enough. You know, this North London derby that is coming up Sunday week is hugely important for the club, and these 12 remaining Premier League games are hugely important. So this is absolutely the right decision, and I'm not a fan to be calling for managers to go. I like to see managers given time and patience, but I think on this occasion it simply was not going to work with the style of play, and I think that a number of players weren't actually playing for him, and when you don't have that support from the supporters, it is a huge problem. And last night it was a toxic atmosphere at half-time and especially at full-time, and a lot of empty seats, which is very, very sad to see.
Chris, obviously that North London derby coming up, that's a tough game now for Arsenal because, you know, normally when a manager comes in, there's a big reaction from the players. So I know you have some top players that are out injured, but that's going to be a really, really difficult game now. My question to you, though, is when this new manager comes in, whether it's interim or permanent manager, are you prepared to see losses? Are you prepared to see a big change, but the football is good?
Jay, I think the Spurs fans, and I think I've said this before on this show, and especially to you, I think that we've all been very patient in recent history. You know, in our new stadium, we've gone through 6 managers, 6 permanent managers, 3 interim managers. We've been prepared to be very patient with a lot of managers as well. Of course, Ange Postecoglou had a lot of injuries. Yes, injuries have played a huge part in Thomas Frank's time at Tottenham, but you've got to remember as well that the media, you know, absolutely battered for Ange Postecoglou last season with injuries. He still delivered the Europa League trophy. So I think that we've been very patient with managers overall. And yes, I'm prepared to be very patient with another manager. But I think when you see the type of football that Thomas Frank was trying to play, you know, there wasn't even a plan A, let alone a plan B that Postecoglou.
But you can't be too patient. Whoever comes in now, whether it's interim or not, you can't be too patient because you've only got not that many games, really. You've only got a few more months in order to stay in the Premier League. You've got another 12 games to go, and you're only 5 points above West Ham, and West Ham's form is good.
Would you take Ange back?
I don't think Ange Postecoglou would come back, and I don't see the football club going down that route either. I just hope at this stage that we do have an interim manager coming in, even if it is a couple of ex-players, to get this team, you know, the confidence back.
Which ex-players? Because we know that you like Pochettino in the summer. We know that the fans in general like Pochettino in the summer. But which ex-players do you want now?
It depends who's available, Tom. I'm sure that now Thomas Frank has actually been sacked. I'm sure there'll be a lot of people putting themselves forward, and I'm sure that they'll be making a lot of phone calls as well to see who is available. But I just think that when you look at what Manchester United have done with Michael Carrick
Which names stand out, though? Which names stand out? If you want an ex-Tottenham player to come in, which ones stand out? Available or not, whichever ones, you know, they want to approch, who would you like to see?
Tom, it's got to be Harry Redknapp, surely.
Well, you've just said Redknapp. Jamie O'Hara's mentioned Tim Sherwood before. Someone threw in Jermaine Defoe as well. Who would you say?
Well, you could say any of those names, Tom. I just think that if you got 2 or 3 of those people in, one as manager, one as assistant, one as a coach, you know, if you had a collective, you know, 2 or 3 ex-players, something that means something to the football club. You know, you've seen what Michael Carrick has done at Manchester United. It has worked. It has given Manchester United, you know, a huge boost of energy, and I feel like that is exactly what is needed at Tottenham. And, you know, when people don't want to be going to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, that is a huge issue. And as I mentioned, the booing at the stadium, you know, for Thomas Frank is just it's unbelievable. I've never seen scenes like it. I've never seen a fan base be so unsupportive of a manager because they just don't believe that it was going to be, the right thing going forward.
I think Michael might have some more news to bring us.
No, Michael Dawson's just texted me saying Robbie Keane. But, I mean, that is someone
that would be a good manager.
Yeah, I mean...
But he's got experience.
Yeah, but I was told
as much as Redknapp,
he wouldn't come as an interim, I think, because, I mean, he's done ever so well abroad, hasn't he? But that's a very interesting one from Michael Dawson there.
He's currently in a job, isn't he, at Ferencváros?
Yeah, and would he do it as an interim? I don't know. But, yes, it's a good shout from Dawsey there. But he knows the club inside out. And there's just a detachment there, isn't there, Chris? Is that how you feel at the moment, a real detachment? I'll be honest with you, Chris. I'm looking at the fixtures now, and when I was walking in today, I don't know where the next win came from. So, for me, it was they'd had to make a decision over the next couple of days. They've made it. Was it? Do they think Spurs are better off with or without Thomas Frank in terms of these last games? And they've decided that they need to make a change. But look at the squad. This person who's going to inherit. I mean, there's so many players out. And they're not coming back next week or the week after.
Bridges, that's the 11 that started yesterday is still a good 11 to go and win football matches. You can't tell me they're not a good 11 there. Yes, in terms of depth and squad, OK. But, you've got Solanke up front. You got good players in there. You've got Sarr in there. Van der Ven's in there. They've got good players still. Spence. They've still got very good players. So I feel like... Yeah, we can blame injuries, and injuries is important over the course of a season. But when you just isolate games like last night, it was a terrible performance. Tottenham didn't even come out the half for the pretty much the first half. So they got a lot to sort out. It's not just the personnel. I feel like they need to go and sort out someone to come in. I think it should be a permanent manager, to be honest, that can go and start working with his team, build a philosophy, build a club, because right now it's dire. Boos every week. When you turn on Tottenham now and you go to watch them, it's just boring. It is really boring.
I agree with both of you. Of course, injuries have played a huge part, in Ange Postecoglou's time at Spurs and, of course, now Thomas Frank's. But you have to find a way as a manager. Even Frank said that last night. He's got to find a way of getting results. And when Spurs are slipping down that league table like that, this is definitely the right decision. Every Spurs fan since last night, even during the game, was calling for Thomas Frank to go. This is absolutely the right decision to make as Tottenham Hotspur. But they've now got to make the next decision the right one. I completely agree with you, Jay, that we have a number of good quality players at Tottenham, and we should be playing a certain way of football, a different style of football, entertaining. I remember coming on here a couple of months ago saying that it wasn't entertaining. At that point, I was worried about the entertainment style, and now I'm worried about where the next points are coming from, like Michael said. But we've got 12 games now. We could salvage something, and I know it's a long shot, but we could get a European spot if we get into a good run. I know you laugh,
Chris,
but
Chris, come on, man. It's not April Fool's already.
It's mathematically possible. It is mathematically possible.
Yeah, I doubt if that's going to happen now. I mean, first of all, is it Fulham away? Then you've got Palace.
Then you got Arsenal first.
Sorry, Arsenal, then Fulham away, then Palace.
Liverpool away.
Liverpool away. Them games there, I mean, even those games there, I can't see where you're getting wins from.
Do these players have the fight, right? So it's, what is it, Arsenal, yeah? When Spurs played Arsenal a few months ago, it was an utter disgrace of a performance. I've seen worse Spurs sides in the late 90s show fight when they went to Highbury. Good Arsenal teams. The Chelsea at home, do they have the fight, Chris? Arsenal game's going to be tough, right? And Arsenal in the away, and they're going to be probably loving every minute of it. Then the week after, Fulham away. Last year, Fulham away, Matisse Tell was speaking to fans.
Yeah.
I don't know about that one, Chris. Then what's the next one? I've got Palace, nice one, Jay. You're not bad for Arsenal, are you? Palace. And
Palace at home.
I'm just looking at the fixtures. That's my concern.
And then Liverpool.
That's my concern.
I think there would be huge concern if Thomas Frank was still here. I just think now, if Spurs are going to get an interim manager or indeed make a permanent appointment, I think that he's going to give everyone a lot of renewed energy. And
the thing is, Michael, the club weren't prepared for this, because you've quite rightly said they did not want to do this with Thomas Frank. Does that mean that they might not have a contingency ready?
After West Ham, Chris will back this up. It was, again, atmosphere, very unsavoury. And it's given West Ham a new lease of life.
Yeah.
They were on the way out. And all of a sudden, the doctor turns up. And then look at West Ham at the moment. You know, they've got a bit of fight in them. Now, but after the West Ham game, there was many who had had enough. That was it. There was understanding that, no, they wanted to carry on with Thomas Frank. And I think another reason for it is because of the lack of options. But you would think and expect and hope that they have been looking into it since then. But I still believe they were reluctant to make this decision. But was it getting to a point where it was actually cruel for him to carry on? But on Monday, when I was in the press conference, I asked about relegation, and it didn't feel like Thomas didn't really mention it at all. Or he said, all that matters is the next game. But Spurs are in it. They're deep in it.
Deep in it.
Deep.
As well, Chris, what kind of calibre of manager would you like to see at Tottenham? I mean, there's obviously Glasner's going to be leaving. There's talks of Iriola, you know, potentially leaving because he's so good.
Silva.
You know, Silva, again. De Zerbi's just left Marseille. Like, what kind of calibre would you
And all the international managers who might go in the summer as well.
Who?
All of the international managers might go in the summer.
What?
Well,
you're talking about Turkle? Poch maybe, but forget about Tuchel, forget about Ancelotti, forget about Nagelsmann, forget about Enrique. They're not going Tottenham.
Nagelsmann could have had the.
They're not going Tottenham. They're not going Tottenham.
I think if you're thinking about entertaining football, I think Andoni Iriola would be a perfect fit at Tottenham. I also think De Zerbi's football would be a perfect fit at Tottenham as well. But I just think that his character probably wouldn't fit at Spurs, in all honesty. Glasner, the way that he's conducted himself in the media lately, I can't see that happening at Spurs either. But with what Michael said about the...
Chris, hold on there. Bridgie's got something to say. He's got a statement.
I was going to let Chris finish, but yeah, Bridgie, you've got the statement. Carry on.
I'll be back to you in a second, Chris. Yeah, I've just got a statement from the football club. The club has taken a decision to make a change in the men's head coach position, and Thomas Frank will leave today. Thomas was appointed in June 2025, and we've been determined to give him the time and support needed to build for the future together. However, the results and performances have led the board to conclude that a change at this point in the season is necessary. Throughout his time at the club, Thomas has conducted himself with unwavering commitment, giving everything in his efforts to move the club forward. We'd like to thank him for his contribution and wish him every success in the future.
So it doesn't say anything about who's in charge right now, does it?
No.
It doesn't say who's in charge. And I know you haven't got a game this weekend, which helps.
Would that be Justin Cochrane, though?
Well, I mean, Thomas took a lot of these Brentford coaching staff with him. That's a very interesting point, Jay, and I think that's sometimes forgotten about when you do make managerial changes.
Backroom staff.
You know, so much of the backroom staff. Look, I think as well, Tom, that point you've just made, I think it's what we've been reporting over the last few weeks. I don't think Tottenham wanted to do this. But being there last night, and Chris, I saw you last night, it's great to be there, isn't it? Tom, you were there a few weeks ago, weren't you?
Yeah.
You enjoyed it, didn't you?
I did. It was absolutely brilliant, but I was an away fan.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's your point, isn't it?
Yes, Thomas. And that is my point.
I think the difference, Michael, last night after the game and even during the game, there were a lot of people shouting up to the board members, showing their frustration. And I think that was probably the tipping point of, when they were receiving that frustration from the fans, and they have seen and heard the boos on a number of occasions. I think that was probably the tipping point. And, seeing Spurs go down the league table into 16th, and then at that point when West Ham were 1-0 up, and then we thought that we were 3 points away from the relegation zone, I think a lot of people were extremely worried. But that stadium, as you've mentioned, Michael, that was meant to be a game changer in 2019. That was meant to be, Spurs going on to the next level. And as I said to you the other day, us winning the Europa League in May, that was meant to be the springboard. We heard the board say that we want to be competing on all fronts, and at the moment we can't even be competing in the Premier League and the Champions League.
I've seen Conor Benn win there more. I mean,
sorry, you got jokes this morning, Bridgie.
But do you know what, Chris? That stadium is incredible, and the fans go week after week. And do you remember that game against Arsenal a few years ago? I remember Gary Neville, under Antonio Conte, Spurs won 3-0. And Gary Neville said the atmosphere won the game that night. And
incredible.
It feels so long ago now. And, I said to someone last night, did Bilbao happen? Did it happen? It feels so long ago, and it just felt like a nice few days. That's what I think is sad for Spurs supporters.
Bridgie, Chris, if you was to get interim manager, you know, we've seen the effect that managers step in and do. We've seen Carrick, Martin O'Neill, David Moyes. We've seen the effect those kind of managers can have on the squad in taking them forward. Would you like to see Harry Redknapp? I mean, I would. I think Harry Redknapp would be great for Tottenham. I think a lot of fans would like to see him as well. Even if it is as an interim, what do you think about that?
Well, the best example is Martin O'Neill, isn't it? At Celtic.
Yeah. One Carrick.
Like I said, Jay, I think you need people going into the football club in these remaining 12 games that know the club, and it means a lot to the football club. You know, it means a lot to them, and I just think that, you know, the body language of the players, they looked beat even before the game yesterday. Walking into the stadium, the body language didn't look good, and I just think that these players need the confidence put back into them. And, you know, we need to be playing the Tottenham way, a certain style of play, because, you know, you tell me, any one of you three, tell me what a Thomas Frank style is, because we're all still wondering. We're in Feb, and we're wondering what the style of play actually is.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, I don't know what the philosophy of Tottenham is. I mean, with Ange, at least you knew his philosophy, which is possession-based, playing out from the back, attacking football, controlling the tempo of a game, controlling the possession of a game. And that's why I was surprised that with all those injuries, Ange still brought success to the club, but the fans still wasn't happy. You've had Hall of Fame managers, Mourinho, Conte. You've had these managers, but it just seems like the fans are never happy. It's always something. Hopefully, I mean, interim manager, I would probably take Harry. Permanent, I would probably take De Zerbi.
I think that's a little bit. I think that's a little bit unfair saying the fans are never happy, because I think most fans wouldn't have sacked
managers.
The fans didn't sack the managers. The board sacked the managers, and the board made a number of poor decisions, in my opinion. I don't think a lot of fans would have sacked Mourinho 6 days before a final, and I don't think a lot of fans, well, I know a lot of fans wouldn't have sacked Mauricio Pochettino, you know, just after taking us to a Champions League final, having not spent a penny in 518 days in multiple transfer windows. So I think that's a little bit unfair.
OK, Chris, thanks very much for coming on today. It was good timing.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Loads of you have been getting in touch, as you would imagine, with this massive breaking news this morning that Tottenham have sacked Thomas Frank. We've had a message from Craig saying it's absolutely disgusting how Tottenham fans have thrown Thomas Frank under the bus. He's not a miracle worker and needed more time to get his own players in. Tottenham will never be successful if they keep changing the manager every season. Gareth has said it's a shame things didn't work out for Thomas, but players need to take accountability, as lacklustre performances have cost us another manager. Tony has said Spurs should call Harry for interim manager, which is also what Jay's been saying, actually. And Paul says Frank should have gone weeks ago. We are genuinely in a relegation fight. 11 senior players available for a club like Spurs is a disgrace. We've also got a voice note from John.
I'm a Newcastle fan, but absolute madness seeing that Tottenham Hotspur sack Thomas Frank this morning. All he needed was a bit of time. The man's tried his best with 12 players missing through injury. He can't do no more.
OK, all right, so you're all having your say. Keep
morning's newspapers. Joining us are Martin Hardy, the Times and Sunday Times Northern sports correspondent, Henry Winter, the sports broadcaster and writer. Welcome along to you both. Well, there's only one place to start, and that is with events at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, a game that had a huge build-up given the predicaments of both managers. And it's Thomas Frank and Spurs with a focus after Eddie Howe's side won by 2 goals to 1. You can see here The Guardian going with Ramsey winner for Newcastle adds to Frank woes to leave Spurs fearing the drop. Let's talk to our guest then about the game, first of all. We'll talk about Thomas Frank in a moment, Martin and Henry. But in terms of Spurs and how they conceded their goals and just the wider malaise that speaks to, still without a league win this calendar year, I mean, Henry, how do you describe it?
Pretty shocking, really. And their next game is the North London derby, where I think Arsenal fans will correct me on my maths. It could be St Tottenham's Day, which is the day in the calendar where Spurs can no longer catch Arsenal, and that's coming earlier and earlier, and that is pretty damning. And I just think that Thomas Frank, obviously, there's a lot of sympathy for him in terms of the injuries, particularly to a player like Kulusevski, who could give them that invention that they were so bereft of tonight. I mean, Xavi Simons had a go, but they were disappointing. They were negative. Two of their players got booked for diving. Clearly, all is not well there. It's not simply the fact they've got a packed medical centre. It's the sort of the attitude, it's the mood, and part of that is Frank. Part of that's recruitment as well, and people upstairs have got to take responsibility for that. But I mean, the fans made their point at half time, and they made their point with 10 minutes to go, sacked in the morning, and they made their point at the end. And it's going to be a pretty febrile atmosphere building up over the next 12 days to the North London derby. That's assuming that Thomas Frank is given that game.
And we'll come on to, again, Frank's predicament in a moment. But I want to ask Martin, are Spurs in a relegation battle? Is that set now?
Manchester United have changed the statistics slightly in the 96th minute. But if you go back to, I think it's January the 6th, when West Ham lost at home to Nottingham Forest, a game which may have been on Sky and was very dramatic. And the contrast in the London Stadium that night to what you saw tonight just shows you how fast football can change. But we're just over a month later. But the gap that night, and if you're stood in the Tottenham boardroom tonight, the gap at that point between West Ham and Tottenham was 13 points, okay? It's now down to 5. Tottenham have gone 8 games without a win in the Premier League. If you're having a serious conversation at boardroom level tonight, you are saying, are we in relegation trouble? And I think you have to say yes. And the following question is, what are we going to do about it? Everything that pointed at Thomas Frank has always seemed to me to be a very good bloke, very honest in press conferences. For 45 minutes against a Newcastle team who themselves have been on a bad run and are struggling for confidence and have had a little bit of dissent amongst their supporters, not to the Tottenham level, I must add, did absolutely nothing in a game of football. In 45 minutes, I think Newcastle had 10 corners, Tottenham had none. They were the home team. It was difficult to remember that. No shots on target. I think Newcastle had 3 or 4 times as many touches in the Tottenham penalty area. They didn't look like a team that has grasped the situation that they're in, or the players didn't seem particularly bothered by the situation that they're in. Before the game, Thomas Frank said, we have to realise the situation we are in, and none of his players did. That, to me, suggests you may be at the point where, A, you're definitely in a relegation battle, but B, does the board of directors have to think about making a change to alter the trajectory of this season? The teams beneath them, directly beneath them and around them, Palace beat Brighton, West Ham very nearly beat Manchester United tonight. Those teams are fighting really hard to stay up. Those Tottenham players aren't. When Xavi Simons a player, in theory, I like number 10s. I'm keen with what Florian Wirtz is doing at Liverpool. When he breaks in the second half and he has 4 players to his right, he goes around Kieran Trippier and he dives rather than trying to attack the game. And that, to me, spoke so much about the attitude of those Tottenham players tonight. 10 minutes after half-time, they had a bit of a go. The last couple of minutes, they had a couple of shots blocked by Newcastle players. But in terms of the desire of the players, whether or not they're playing for the manager, you watch Newcastle players, what they give to Eddie Howe tonight, and you contrast that to what the Tottenham players give to Thomas Frank, and they're miles apart.
Let's just have a look at the Telegraph, who have a very simple headline. Frank in free fall. Manager jeered and taunted by own fans as Spurs side slide towards trouble. Since they beat Crystal Palace away on December the 28th, this is their Premier League form. Draw, loss, draw, loss. That's 4 out of 24 points on offer that they have taken. And in fact, in the last 5 of those league games, they have conceded 2 goals at least. In fact, in the last 6 of those games, two goals at least, if not more. Henry was asking whether Thomas Frank would be in charge for that Arsenal game, which is fast approaching. Well, Thomas Frank addressed that and his future in his post-match news conference.
I understand the fans' frustration. We are in a position we don't want to be in. That we're working very hard day and night to change. And I also think it's a situation now the club has been in it's fair to say, almost 2 years, and ended last season as well. clearly a pattern that we struggle to manage Europe and Premier League, and that's something me, the team, the club, the players, we need to learn to do even better.
Will you still be in charge for the Arsenal game, do you think?
Yeah, I'm convinced there will be. We all, and I think I understand the question. I understand it's easy to point on me, but I also think it's never only the head coach, or the ownership, all the directors, all the players, all the staff. Is everyone. If you do something right, you will build something that can last. Of course, we are not in a top position now. Everyone knows, directors, ownership, myself, what position we are in and what we need to improve and what we need to do better.
So there you have it. Thomas Frank saying he will be in charge for that Arsenal game. And he said that he had no doubt about his future when speaking to the board yesterday. I wonder whether tonight's result may have changed that at all. But you can hear that's him after tonight's game. Let me just come back to you, Henry, then. You know, it seems like he isn't bullish, but he seems that he is set, that he wants to continue, that he believes he's doing the right things, that yes, there are results not going his way in the Premier League. Yes, there are injuries. But, you know, how do Spurs resolve this? How do they move now? What happens in the next 24, 48 hours?
Well, it would help if their captain didn't get himself sent off and get a 4-game ban and take to Instagram before that to question certain people at the club. It's a question of leadership, and that's why the board have got to show leadership. And whether that's a question of actually coming out and supporting him in public, and we know what sort of reaction that will get from the Spurs fans. But, I mean, look, the headline of Martin's paper at the time, Spurs fans demand Frank acts. I mean, so they've got a decision to make. First, with always when managers' heads are being called, you know, who do you replace him with? I mean, is Xabi Alonso going to step in? I mean, who of quality will they get to step in? And do they want to bring a new manager in and give him the North London derby against Arsenal, who are in the form and would absolutely love to go there with their crowing fans and actually give Tottenham a pummeling? Or do they continue with Frank? I mean, all the mood music from the board is that they really want Thomas Frank to do well. They don't want to be a club of continued managerial churn. But when you look at this and you look at the body language of the players and you look at the indiscipline of the captain and you look at the indiscipline of some of the players, and particularly the dives, there's something rotten, as this headline on the back of the Star said, Tottenham Hotspur. There's something rotten in the state of, well, not so much Denmark, Thomas Frank's country, but in the state of Tottenham. And how do you address that? I mean, they brought Conor Gallagher in because he's a leader, he's a fighter. We saw that at Chelsea, we've seen it with England, we saw it at Atletico. And even he's been sort of dragged down by the sort of the anodyne nature of the lack of fight in these Tottenham players.
Let's talk Newcastle, shall we? Martin, obviously on your patch, but this was a much-needed win for them too. They hadn't won in the league since the 4-3 win over Leeds on January the 7th. How vital a shot in the arm is this for Eddie Howe?
Oh, this is a huge win. Going back to Eddie Howe's first season, a game that doesn't get much publicity, and for whatever reason, the club missed off their fly in the wall documentary. They won 1-0 at Leeds from a Joe Shelby goal, and it's arrested a run of results that pointed them towards relegation. And Eddie Howe himself, so that was huge. Tonight felt not a million miles away. And if you'd watched Eddie Howe's celebration for the 2 goals, he was fairly muted, kept it together. He knew that he had to get 3 points tonight to calm everything down in Tyneside, which can be fairly volatile and lively and sways either towards this is the greatest club in the world or this is the worst. He needed that win tonight just to calm everybody down a little bit. You saw at full time or 5 minutes after full time when he was in the corner of the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium with the Newcastle fans, punch in the air, jumping around. That's quite rare for Eddie Howe to go be that animated. That's what it meant. It was a huge, huge result. It's a nightmare run of fixtures Newcastle have. Tottenham away on Saturday, they're away to Aston Villa in the FA Cup. They then fly around 6,000-mile round trip to Baku to play Karabakh in the Champions League. And then at the end of all that, they head to the Etihad, a ground where they've lost 18 of the last 19 games. Of the 4 fixtures, this was the must-win to just calm things down with the league position, to put a gap between themselves and the likes of Tottenham and Palace. Suddenly you're back in the top 10. this is such a topsy-turvy season that if you get 2 or 3 wins, look at Manchester United, you suddenly go flying up the table and everybody forgets how upset they were with life about 2 weeks beforehand. It's a major, major win. But as much as that, the style of football Newcastle played in the first half was how Eddie Howe likes the team to play. Front foot, full of energy, full of speed. You want to pick a slight negative, Nick Voldemort comes on right at the death and Johan Visa doesn't play any part at all. So the 2 big summer signings have still to contribute really, certainly for the last 10, 15 matches. That is a concern. But tonight, out of the rest of the players, Newcastle got a performance that will calm everything down in terms of the football club and prepare them for these next 3 games, which are still very, very difficult.
Thank you, chaps. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll look at more of the sports stories in the morning's newspapers as Benjamin Šeško breaks West Ham hearts with a late leveller and keeps Michael Carrick's unbeaten start intact. We're back in a couple of minutes. You are watching Backpages tonight. Welcome back to you at home. Welcome back to Martin Hardy from the Times and Sunday Times and Henry Winter as well. We're going to talk about one of the winning runs in the league that has ended for a new manager, and that includes Michael Carrick at Manchester United. In the Mirror, Big Ben strikes 6'5" Šeško scores in the 96th minute to earn United an unlikely point, but they were on course for defeat at West Ham. So saving his team, who'd won the last 4 games on the bounce. I mean, really, this was... Nuno Espirito Santo's expression at the end here was one of real disbelief, wasn't it? Because his side had bounced back and shown more than signs of life. How did you see this one, Martin?
Yeah, as you said, the pain in the body language of Nuno was something to behold. It was like he's physically being punched in the stomach. But the nature of football, which is why we spend so much of our life obsessed with the game, means that in the 97th minute, about 2 minutes later, Wan-Bissaka hacked one clear, and the mood in the stadium was absolute relief that they didn't actually go on to lose the game. But in terms of the two teams that have turned things around, it's been dramatic at both clubs. Manchester United have found a bit of that old spirit under Carrick to come back so late in the game, and it's a brilliant, brilliant finish from Sesko, a player who is finally starting to show, just how much talent that he may have to show in this league. West Ham have got fight and organisation, and Nuno prides himself on clean sheets, so that's probably another reason he was so distraught. They broke with Callum Wilson later on in the game, could have won the game by 2 goals, and that would have made the gap to Tottenham even closer. But from both sides, what you're seeing is fight. From Manchester United, you're seeing a real push to try and get a Champions League place. We've seen recently the figures for the clubs that are in the Champions League this season. To this point, the lowest earnings of any of them is the 50 million that Newcastle have earned from the competition. It's vital for these teams to be in the Champions League. Manchester United are in with a real shout of doing that now, and that's a remarkable turnaround under Michael Carrick.
What do you think about this, Henry? I mean, if you'd been Michael Carrick and you'd said to him, well, do you know what, 13 points from the first 15 on offer, you'd probably take that. But for Nuno, this does feel like a huge 2 points drop, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I mean, but you can see the impact that he's having in terms of he's tightened the defence, which at West Ham was a real problem, and it took an absolutely fantastic and very difficult expert finish from Šeško to actually to make the breakthrough or to get the equaliser. I think Nuno, as you say, his body language was just he's just distraught at that late what happened late on. But I think he'll look around the ground and he'll listen and he'll realise actually this place can not so much be a fortress, but it doesn't necessarily have to be such an inhibiting factor. And that the West Ham fans were absolutely behind their team, which has not always been the case. We know about the tensions between many of the supporters and the board. They want them to sell up, but they were absolutely full square behind the team. But in terms of, I mean, first, the Mirror Sport, fair play to them, getting that match report, which is probably, along with Frank, the biggest story of the night. Remarkable how these desks sort of turn these stories around so quickly. But I think if you look at a player like Šeško, you actually see Michael Carrick's influence, because he's a big name striker, cost a fair bit. All centre forwards have egos, and he started him on the bench in a couple of games and brought him on, and Šeško absolutely is ready to have an impact. So you can see what Carrick does, whether he gets the job long term or not. What he's doing in the short term, as you say, 4 wins and a draw, getting them on course for one of the 5, I'm pretty sure it'd be 5 Champions League positions, and the huge riches that come with that compared to the Europa League is very significant. And the players obviously enjoy playing for him. I mean, you looked at the way Martinez played tonight. We talk about fight in players. Martinez embodied that. Harry Maguire, who I thought had done his hamstring. I mean, he, the fight in him as well, some of the tackles that he was putting in. I mean, they probably missed Patrick Dorgu in terms of that width on the left. Obviously, he's out with a hamstring, which is frustrating for Manchester United and that balance. But you saw a little bit about DNA. And look, all teams have DNA. It's not simply an exclusive Manchester United thing. But Manchester United's DNA is width. Where did the goal come from? Player out wide. And they also have absolute defiance. Fergie time, was it 6 minutes into added time? They never gave up. So I think, Michael Carrick will take absolute pleasure from that and from the point. But he's such a competitive individual, particularly against his old team. He probably would have liked all 3.
Another team that's in that Champions League, Europa League picture is Chelsea. And again, an incredible game here. How do they not win it? 2-2, it finished at home to Leeds. Liam Ratinha's side throw away a 2-goal lead amid VAR controversy. This from our own website. Briefly, if you can, Martin, was it a goal? Should it have stood?
We'll have to keep watching it over and over again to say I'm not 100% sure. It is a sign that Chelsea aren't yet at that point they want to be, which frustrates their supporters. At the same time, take nothing away from Leeds. The spirit Daniel Farke has got into that team, and the fact that they're doing so well this season when they return to the Premier League themselves. And Sunderland are really making a fight, certainly without a doubt. Sunderland seem destined to stay up. To have 2 promoted teams coming up and doing so well is a sign of teams fighting and changing that kind of mood that if you're coming up, you're going to go straight back down. But yeah, it's a disappointing result for Chelsea. They're not where they want to be yet, and they have to kind of improve. It's good to see Cole Palmer back playing well, and I think in João Pedro they've got a quality centre forward, but they're not the finished article despite the fact they've spent over £1 billion.
Yeah, Cole Palmer, hat-trick in his last game and then a goal and assist in this one. What about Leeds, Henry? A decent point for Daniel Farke's side when it looked like they wouldn't get anywhere near that.
I mean, it's a remarkable turnaround. What was it in the Manchester City game when he tweaked the team at half-time, and even though they didn't win that, the fact that he changed the formation so effectively, this is very much down to Farke. Obviously at home as well, with that extraordinary, intense support that they give the team, individual players as well playing well. But Farke, he sets the fighting spirit, he sets the tone, the tactical tweaks that he's done. Their turnaround is absolutely to do with him.
A little bit short on time, but let's talk quickly about Everton-Bournemouth. It finished 1-2 at the Hill Dickinson Stadium. Bournemouth turning this one around away from home. And the man in your picture there, Amin Adli, who, as it says there, soaks it up after putting Bournemouth ahead in the second half. But really, again, it's Ryan who's grabbing the headlines, Martin. What do you make of him?
Yeah, they've got a pretty good recruitment team at Bournemouth. They lose Semenyo and sign another winger who comes in, hits the ground running and starts scoring goals straight away. I'm sure we've spoken on this programme before about how good a coach Iraola is. There was a little bit of a wobble probably about a month ago, and he's turned that round. Everton under David Moyes have been probably the surprise team of the season to be so high. I think it is a sending off for Brian, but by then Everton are already trailing. Bournemouth show real flair in terms of what they can do with what they have. A great result for them. Another pat on the back for how good a coach Iraola is.
OK, well, that's a game Everton were involved in. Well, what about Liverpool? And Arne Slot with some fascinating quotes in his pre-match news conference. So you can see here in the Telegraph, Arne Slot, only Champions League will do after hardest season of my life. And he's wary of the effect that being in the Europa League will have on Liverpool's spending. And indeed, it is something to be aware of, given where they are in the table. Of course, they do play tomorrow night, but they are sixth right now, 5 points behind Chelsea. Could have been 7 points behind Chelsea, who are in fifth, which is likely to get a Champions League place with 5 English teams involved next season. What was the most eye-catching thing from his comments, would you say, Henry?
Well, just that comment that's in the headline there. The fact that it was, I mean, he was replying to a question, was it the toughest season of his life? And he said yes. I mean, he's partly a victim of his own success in terms of he's raised expectations at Liverpool by winning the title in the first season with only spending, 10 million quid on Chiesa. He did it fantastically, and he dealt with issues of players' contracts as well. And obviously Trent Alexander-Arnold leaving. So I think he's got a lot of credit in the bank, and I think the COP certainly knows that. But yeah, I thought it was a remarkably honest comment. I mean, if you are Liverpool's owners, you're actually looking at the difference between being in the Champions League, which is 100 million plus, and being in the Europa League, which is probably a third or a quarter of what you get in the elite competition. So, yeah, there's a lot of pressure and a lot of money on it. But, they've got some good players. They just need to get them fit and all blended properly.
Really briefly from you again, Martin. Liverpool currently sixth. They win their game in hand. They go 2 points off Chelsea. Do you think they will make Champions League or not?
I think they are on the outside of it at the minute. They have a very hard game at Sunderland, who haven't lost at home in the Premier League, one of the very few clubs in the top 5 major European leagues to have reached that position. They keep showing signs, but they look suspect at the back. Arne Slot reminding everybody of what he's done is perhaps not a great sign in terms of, is he worried the fans are forgetting this? The fact that he won the trophy in his first season, the fact that they couldn't really spend very much in that first summer. They are the outsiders, I would say, at this point. But with Ekitike, you have a chance.
I really want to quickly cover one final story in The Guardian. Henry, the headline here, EFL clubs to vote on expanding Championship playoffs to 6 clubs. Vote next month after FA Board approves radical plan. A new playoff format would begin as soon as next season. So not 4 teams involved in the playoff, but 6. So is it right, we've got about a minute or so, that the 8th best club should be in the playoffs?
Well, I think that was one of the concerns of the Premier League, if the 8th best team in the Championship actually went up. But I think this is going to go through. It's a story in the Guardian. I think in the Times, Martin Ziegler has got it as well. And it's going to happen. And I think the broadcasters will like it, and clearly the clubs will like it because they got more of a chance.
Yeah, well, it would effectively include an extra round, wouldn't it? Because we would have the effectively 3rd and 4th place teams, waiting to find out what happened between 5th and 6th, 7th and 8th, and then eventually to, a semi-finals and and a final. Yes, extended playoffs. We've seen this before in others, particularly the conference in the 5th tier English football. Right then, gents, we're going to have to call it a day there, but thank you so much for your company and your insights. Martin and Henry, we will see you again very, very soon, I'm sure. Don't forget, if you missed any of the show, then it is available as a podcast. Another chance to see it at 30:30 the hour here on Sky Sports News. But in terms of the pod, just download back pages on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your pods. And you can join us again Wednesday night. And our guests will be John Cross from Mirror and Miguel Delaney from The Independent. Wednesday, 10:30 p.m. Our coverage starts for back pages tonight. OK, still to come here on Sky Sports News. My goodness. Oh, to be Thomas Frank right now. Still no league win in 2026 as his side lose 2-1 at home.
Overview of the performance, because it looked a bit kind of stodgy.
Good word, that.
I don't know what it means.
I think mixed, to be honest. Mixed feelings. I think we know we weren't quite at our best. I think credit West Ham for that, a little bit of closing certain spaces up, but I think we can be better. The boys are a bit frustrated and disappointed probably with that, which is a really good sign for me. You know, and then finishing with a late goal when we've had to find one is a good moment and another positive for us to know that we can do that, and we don't want to have to pull on it and use it too often. But I think in the grand scheme, I think as a point, something where we can take, and we kind of dust ourselves down a little bit, assess it, take these games over a 5-game period, and to just have one draw in there, I think is a big positive. So mixed feelings, really.
You gamble at the end in the last 10 minutes when the ball was hit to you and went further back, but you risked it and they got set. That was worth it to get it.
It's always worth it, yeah. It's always worth it to try and get something out of the game. I think I have to say credit to Lenny. I thought his two bits of defending 1v1 and defending the counter-attack, which we knew he was going to have to do at times, throwing the bodies forward. I thought them 2 moments where he's blocked and were huge moments. So he deserves a lot of credit for that, to give us the chance to then go and get the goal that'll kind of get something out of the game. And we had moments. Josh had a chance. Obviously, Casemiro had the chance, which I'm not seeing it, but must have been close. And then big moment for Ben. So, yeah, we had to go for it. You know, we had to try and get something out of the game, and credit to the lads for keep going.
Sorry. Hi, Michael. How much thought did you give to starting Benjamin tonight? He's obviously made an impact off the bench a few times. And did you consider bringing him on Hendrick any of it? It felt for a while like he was missing that kind of focal point of the striker tonight, not the build-up.
Yeah, it's always the balance. You know, I think the boys have done fantastically well who have played as well. So it's that's the importance of the whole group and the importance of the squad. And I've said it. I've said it to them after every game. And I only say it because it's that important. And as I said, Lenny's come on and made a big difference for us tonight in big moments. And then Ben scored again. So Ben's doing a lot of work. He's in a good place. You know, he's ready to kick on. It's just managing the kind of the balance, you know. And yeah, we could have changed things a little bit earlier. That's obviously the decision. We're always trying to make the right one. And we're actually having a bit of a spell in the game at that point where we thought we might come back into it, and Casemiro's goal. And so there's a balance, but certainly when he came on the pitch, he made a big difference.
Andy? Hi, Michael. It's the first time you've not had like a full week into a game. How much the difference did that make in terms of preparation and performance?
Nah, that is what it is. That didn't make a difference for us. I think we know how hard it is to put a run together in this league. Every team shows that. It's not easy to build and win every game, you know. So sometimes you got to pull on different things. Sometimes it naturally comes and it flows and you get everything clicks and you look really dangerous and there's a spark. Sometimes it's a little bit more difficult, as Simon says, maybe a little bit stodgy, but it's sometimes it just doesn't quite work. You got to find the answers and find a way. And listen, we prefer to be doing it with a clean sheet. I think if we were really at it, we'd have a clean sheet and give us a chance of winning the game. That's the frustrating one, really, with a goal that we conceded from a flow that was kind of in their corner. That's. But sometimes you got football throws things up and you got to do it. So, you know, as I said, in the grand scheme of things, we managed to take something from it and move on.
Rob and then Carl.
Just on Ben, it's obviously a big move for a young striker to come to the Premier League. And at times before he arrived, he was a little bit short of confidence, but he's come up with 2 massive goals for you now. And then the finish tonight, it looks like the finish of someone who's been one of it is.
Yeah, it's an unbelievable finish from the angle to kind of generate that, to get it on target, to finish it. It's some goal from him. And he's capable of that, Ben. You know, he's done it over time. It's not that he's just suddenly burst on the scene. He's been doing it. He's proven that he can score goals as well, and he's been doing it in training for us as well. So it's not surprising, to be honest. I think that's what he does. It's what he's good at. But certainly to be actually do it and to feel it. As I said, the last one would have done him the world of good. The winner tonight, a little bit different with the emotion of the game, but certainly important and a big moment for him and us.
Good evening, Mr. Garrett. I just want to talk about Kobbie Mainoo a little bit. He's often described as the midfielder who doesn't always make the highlight reel. Someone who used to be a midfielder is now a coach. Could you explain that sort of player to the layman, to any young players out there?
Yeah, I think he just plays his role in the team, Kobbie. I think he's playing next to Casemiro. I think they've got a really good partnership and kind of complement each other. And basically, as a midfielder, you're trying to connect the team and you're trying to bring everything together, whether that's with the ball, without the ball. And he certainly takes the ball. I think we all realise that he'll take the ball everywhere and he'll connect the whole team. And he's not always going to be the one that maybe has the final action, but he certainly starts a lot of our moves, and he's having a big impact on the team at the moment, which is great to see.
During your playing days, referring on your point to us why you like playing with you, and he simply said, "I like Michael Carrick because he passes the ball full." When you're up against a team like West Ham who's that deep, how hard is it to get the ball full?
Yeah, it's challenging because listen, we're all craving for it. You know, I'm on the side of the pitch, and you're wanting them moments where you can open them up and you can be really positive. I think there's that balance as well of a team like that who are so dangerous on transition and on regains and turnovers with the pace they have and the way that they can attack so fast. So there's a real element of getting the balance between risking passes through the middle or risking a pass to then give away to then try. So you've got to be in, as much as you want to go and progress, you still got to be in a position to manage the game and have an element of control. And we probably just went a little bit more in terms of the control tonight at times, but that's something we'll get towards. And the fact that we still scored the goal at the end, you know, I think we can't be too down or too disappointed. I think there's you got to understand the context of the game and where we're at, and we can still take a lot from the game.
Chris, and then last one for Nathan.
Hi, Michael. You haven't got a game for a little while now, so just wondering what's the plan for the next couple of weeks? Stay in Manchester or get away?
Yeah, I stay in Manchester. I think it's a chance to do a bit of both, of refresh a little bit. A few boys carrying knocks and niggles and a few strains that we can kind of clean up, as you would expect at this stage of the season, and then obviously do some good work. And I think they do need a little bit of a breather and kind of digest where we're at really after this period of time. And take a deep breath and then come back, learn from it and kind of clear the head and come back stronger again. So it'll be a little mixed, but it's a strange one, obviously, 13 days, but we'll definitely use it and make the most of it.
Late goals are a bit of a tradition at this club. Arsenal, West Ham and Fulham seen that. Has that been a bit of a message from you to the players, or to always keep going?
I think it's a huge part of it. I think you've got to have that spirit, and then sometimes you've got to find a way, you know. And we all try and want the perfect kind of performance. Well, not perfect, but you know, the kind of best we can be. Sometimes it doesn't quite happen, but it doesn't mean you give up. And we obviously went for it. You know, we went free at the back, and the rest all attacking basically towards the end to try and find that goal. And I think that's the way we should do it at that moment. And we managed to pull it off. So I was delighted with the boys.
And Michael, just on the attack, it's got so much versatility, especially when Ben's under there, Brian, where the left Bruno. How difficult is that to try and find the right balance? And obviously with Ben there, it's a slightly different game.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit on different games as well, and situation in games, and how you want to attack, where the space is or what the game looks like. We probably didn't quite get the balance right, if we're honest, you know, for the first part of the game. which happens, that happens, and sometimes, teams are allowed to stop you from scoring. So we just got to find that way. But we kept going and mixed things up, and because we have got that flexibility, I think it certainly helps to find different solutions.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, cheers, guys.
Into it, Tim. Igor Tudor begins his first full week as Spurs interim manager today as he prepares for the North London derby. On Soccer Saturday, Timothy Sherwood, you said there is absolutely no upside for Igor Tudor taking this job. Explain what you meant by that.
I said, what is the upside? The upside is, for him, very little upside. Upside is managing a wonderful football club in Tottenham Hotspur, and I think he's come out and said he's proud to get the opportunity to do that, as every other manager would say. But he needs to win the Champions League and win every game in the Premier League, or 90% of the games in the Premier League, for him to have any chance of taking that job on the long term. That job is going to Mauricio Pochettino if he wants it, and if they're in the Premier League, which I believe they will be in. The downside is so catastrophic, it's not even worth thinking about. Tottenham Hotspur to be in the Championship next season, we need to move on. I just can't. I get shivers thinking about it.
Well, but look, the upside for him would be, we're talking about Igor Tudor, with all respect to him, and I know he's managed Marseille and he's managed Juventus, but he's certainly made himself more relevant by managing in the biggest league in the world.
Yeah, but there's not enough time to do a job. There's injuries to the squad. What success looks like, that was the point I was making to him. If he finishes and has a good run and finishes 12th in the Premier League, he's not going to get any credit for that. I believe he should, but from the outside, from the Tottenham fans, from the wider footballing public, no one's giving him any credit for Tottenham Hotspur to finish 12th. But if he was to get him relegated, then we'd all know his name for a long, long, long time.
Why do you think, Tim, they've gone for him? Are you surprised by the type of head coach they've gone for?
A little bit, because he was unknown. I mean, I'd be lying if I said I knew anything about him. I've had a look. He's had a half-decent playing career, and he's managed and he's firefighted a few clubs. He's gone in there when they've been struggling. Udinese, I think, is the one that stands out. The big clubs, Marseille's and the Juve's. But when he went to Juve, it was in Europa League spot. Can he take us to the Champions League? It's a bit like Michael Carrick's job at Manchester United now. So Michael's gone in there, and the upside would be Champions League football. The downside would be Europa League football. It's completely different when you're in the bottom end of the league. Like I say, it is staying in the division or not staying in the division. And you've got a group of players there at Tottenham who are not conditioned to fighting at the bottom of the league. They haven't been brought into that football club to fight at the lower echelons of the Premier League. Whereas other clubs, you might argue, like the West Hams of this world, not that they would have wanted that at the beginning of the season, and the Forests, who look like they're in contention as well, probably are better suited to the fight at the bottom of the league. Because a lot of them Tottenham players are probably saying, on their phones to their agents, saying, if we get relegated, get me away from here. And they will believe they will go and jump to another club. I was saying they possibly will, but they won't go to a bigger club than Tottenham Hotspur. So they need to get the finger out. He needs to go in there straight away and he needs to hit the floor running.
Do you think Spurs are in a relegation scrap?
Yeah, they're in a relegation scrap, but I don't believe they'll get relegated. I really don't. I think they've got enough games out there. It's easy to say this because they've had the games they've come previously, and you would expect them to win against teams at the bottom of the league and mid-table teams, especially at home. They've been unable to get results at home. Now, he's got an opportunity. The biggest game of the season for any Tottenham fan is against Arsenal, especially with Arsenal winning the Premier League at the moment. He can almost ruin their season. It's a double-edged sword for Tottenham and for Igor Tudor. He's getting a free hit at this one. No one really expects it. But if he was to win this game, you might as well build a statue of him and put it outside the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium.
But, if you're admitting that they are in that fight down the bottom, is it bizarre that they've gone for a manager, and you reeled off some of the clubs that he's been in charge of? But, Udinese, they weren't fighting relegation when he was there, nor was he with Marseille, Lazio, Hellas Verona, Galatasaray, when he's managed in Turkey, in other clubs as well. So this is someone who has no experience. They
were struggling. They were struggling. The objectives, what they had at the beginning of the season, to get them back into that position. And he was success to doing that. He's not going to do that at Tottenham because obviously the objectives at the beginning of the season for Tottenham Hotspur is always, when a manager goes in there, to finish in the Champions League spots. Now, they're miles off that now. They're out of all the domestic cups, still in the Champions League. So he's got an opportunity in the Champions League to be a success. But the bread and butter is to stay in the Premier League, and he needs to do that and make sure he does that. He could possibly do that. 3 wins, that is all they need. I mean, we say all they need. They've got 12 games to be able to achieve that. I believe he will do that. I really believe that. And then have a go. Hopefully get some players back to fitness when the Champions League comes around again. You don't know. He might be Roberto Di Matteo. You know, we see what he did.
Surely he keeps the job if he does that.
We see, absolutely. And why wouldn't you want him? You know, he's done that at Chelsea. They won the Champions League. But when I looked at that, just yesterday, I looked at the squad of players, what Di Matteo had at his disposal at Chelsea. The characteristics are a little bit different to the ones that Igor's got at Tottenham.
Why is Sherwood not getting a phone call, by the way, for this help Spurs out for a few months? The phone on over the weekend?
Yeah, same number. No, it never rung. Bad reception, maybe.
Sky Sports have partnered with Finalysis to discover true fan opinion, to have your say on your club. Download the Finalysis app right now. Scan the QR code for more details. And we can speak to a Tottenham Hotspur fan, Alfie Nicholson. Alfie, good to see you again, mate. So, Igor Tudor. Tim needs a little bit of convincing. What about you as a Spurs fan?
Yeah, I'd say the same. I think it's a bit of an unknown, really, for most Premier League fans. Someone coming from the Serie A. It's a surprise for me as well. I thought we'd go internally. I thought Heitinga would get the job, maybe. I thought there'd sort of be a firefighter type manager hired. I thought maybe even Tim said himself, he put himself forward, maybe he'd get the job. But it's now been chosen that we've got Igor Tudor, and it's a bit of a surprise. But he'll soon win over fans if he pulls us out of this dire situation, really.
Yeah, I never put myself forward, by the way. I don't know where you got that from.
I put him forward.
Yeah.
So Tim thinks you are in a relegation scrap. Look, 5 points above the line. And actually, Alfie, I was looking at some of your fixtures, and you'll know these off the top of your head. But there are some tricky ones in there. When you go to Anfield, you go to the Stadium of Light, you go to Villa Park, you go to Stamford Bridge, still in the remaining 12.
Yeah, I agree. I think we are in a relegation battle. I think you can't be 5 points above the relegation zone with 12 games to go and not be almost. But I think there's some other sides around there that could get dragged in. And I think we have to scrap up every point we can get, really. But as you said there, you pointed out a few pictures. I think there's Wolves away on there. I think there's Nottingham Forest at home. Them 2 games in particular are going to be the 2 ones we really, really need to get our points from.
Hold on, there's some trouble here if you're worried about Molineux.
Well, I know, exactly. So we need to make sure we get them points on the board. That's what I'm saying. They should be points we should be easily getting. These should be 3 points we should easily be picking up. And then if you get 3 points there, then you can start to get in a run. And we've seen teams at the bottom do this over the years. If you get a few points, the confidence breeds confidence, and you start to pull away from it. And then hopefully, Tudor can start to get some confidence in the squad, and we can start pulling away from that and getting more towards near the mid-table rather than the bottom 3.
Alfie, for Igor to be deemed a success at Tottenham, what would he need to do? What does success look like for him? Not for the club,
I'm
for
careful.
him.
Yeah, I'm careful not to be asking for too much. So I think survival doesn't mean the basis, really. I think that's minimum objectives complete. You can tick that off. And I think there's an opportunity for him to sort of breathe a bit of confidence into the squad. And as you said yourself, that the quality of the squad isn't absolutely catastrophic, that it's one of the worst in the league. This is a squad that is at least the 13th, 14th up best squad in the league. And I think there's an opportunity for him to sort of, galvanise the players, and sort of, if he puts some performances out with a Spurs squad that has the ability to play some attacking, some exciting football as we saw under Ante Postecoglou, I think that'd be a real big success for him. And there's plenty of vacancies in the summer. There's going to be Crystal Palace looking for a job, Man United looking for a job. I don't think he's going to get that, and obviously Spurs looking for a job. And who knows if Iraola goes elsewhere or Silva goes elsewhere, that leaves Fulham and Bournemouth. And I think he's sort of ticked off Serie A, it sounds like, and if he does well at Tottenham, perhaps that allows him to move into the Premier League, which is obviously one of the pinnacle leagues for top managers to be in.
Did you think, Alfie, that the club wanted to keep hold of Thomas Frank, and it became so toxic at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium especially, they had no choice in the end?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what happened, really. I couldn't believe he lasted after West Ham. I thought that is probably the worst result that could potentially happen. You look at the fixture list and you thought, we can't lose that one. You can't go and lose to West Ham, who was so out of form. And we've sort of breathed the life back into them. And now they're fighting against us. We've sort of opened up the relegation dogfight for ourselves by losing that game. I thought even the Fulham at home game way back in November was sort of the writing was on the wall then. Arsenal away. These were performances that were indicative of the fact that Thomas Frank wasn't the right fit and it wasn't going to work out. And I was waiting for it to get worse and worse into the stadium. I personally thought it'd get to the end of the season, and they're sort of going to block out the whole noise. But eventually, luckily, I think for us as well, it got to a point of toxicity where they had to remove him. And
do you think you would have got relegated
end.
with Thomas Frank?
Oof. I think there's a high possibility. It was always getting to the point where, I mean, you only get an interim in when it gets so bad that almost anyone else would be better. And I think that's what point we got to. It felt as if we couldn't see the next point coming, really. I don't think we'd won in the whole year. And when that sort of record gets longer and longer, if we get to March and won all year, then yeah, I was really getting to start worrying about relegation. So I think the percentages probably went from 50% and it's gone down to about 20, I think, without him there.
Alfie, be honest. This time last year, you again had a massive injury list. I'm not sure, maybe Tim can explain why all the Tottenham players are always injured. That's for another debate, potentially. But did you, being completely honest, think you had any chance of winning the Europa League? And look, I'm not suggesting Spurs go and win the Champions League, but you look at who they could play, and it's been chalk and cheese, isn't it? The performances in terms of the Premier League and the Champions League. Atletico Madrid, Juventus, his old team, by the way, Igor Tudor, Galatasaray, his old team, or Club Brugge as potential last 16 in that tournament. That doesn't look too bad.
No, there's an opportunity for him to do a good run in the Champions League. I know we've referenced Di Matteo, but I did think sort of the Europa League, the calibre teams were a little bit less. It felt like the way Ange was almost speaking as well, the momentum was with us in that Europa League campaign. That it felt like that was an opportunity to go and win that, and it felt like we were sort of almost destined to go and win the Europa League when the momentum's with you and when you're performing well in that competition and so badly in the league. And I think potentially if we were in the Europa League again, Thomas Frank still would have a job because there was an opportunity for Thomas Frank to go and win the Europa League more so than there is the Champions League. So I don't really give us much of a realistic opportunity, but it's nice to dream, and it's nice to sort of have the fans allowed to cling on to something as well. I mean, if we have a nice European light under the lights, as we have done a few times this season, if we get to the quarterfinals of Champions League, that's something to get the fans up for. That's something to win the fans over with. And I think that'll be something that all fans will be looking forward to.
What about this as a scenario? You win the Champions League, you get relegated, you have Tim Sherwood as your manager in the Championship next season.
Would you do it, Tim?
No, I've got a manager for you next year in the Championship anyway, if that comes to that, but it won't. Scott Parker's the man for that job.
Oh, he's already teed up Scotty Parker.
You've got to think ahead.
Alfie, good call. Thanks, mate. Speak to you soon. Right.
Cristiano Ronaldo saga now. As you can see, chief correspondent Kavi Solico joins me now. Kavi, what's going on here then? Because he's been on strike for more than a week. He's missed 2 games for Al Nassr. When is he going to play again?
Well, look, all being well, we're expecting Cristiano Ronaldo to end his strike and return to playing for Al Nassr at the weekend. He's put up a picture today on one of his social media accounts of himself walking into training at Al Nassr, and I think he's giving a kind of peace sign. So perhaps he's sending a message there that there is now peace between him and the people who run Al Nassr. Obviously, he was unhappy about the way the club was being run. He feels that other clubs in Saudi Arabia are getting preferential treatment, are getting more money to spend on transfers. Also, I think, according to some reports in Portugal, he was unhappy about the fact that some of his colleagues at Al Nassr hadn't been paid. And also, some of the people who are close to him, who've been brought in to run Al Nassr, were being marginalised and weren't involved in the decision-making process during the January transfer window. But it looks like that has all been sorted out. So all being well, Cristiano Ronaldo, the man who earns £500,000 a day tax-free, should return to work on Saturday when Al Nassr play Al Fatah.
Okay, lots of talk about this being a bit of a power battle, just with everything that you've said there as well. Does this mean that he has won that power battle with his employers?
Well, there's a newspaper in Portugal called A Bola, who I think are quite close to Cristiano Ronaldo, and that is the way they are painting it. They are basically saying that Cristiano Ronaldo went to war with Al Nassr and also the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund, who own 75% of Al Nassr, and he has emerged victorious because he stood up for his principles. He was unhappy about the fact that Al Nassr weren't spending enough money in the transfer market. He was unhappy about the fact that Portuguese executives at the club had been marginalised, and he had stood up for them, and he has emerged victorious. I'm not so sure whether he has won out. I don't know what kind of concessions he's got from the Saudis. What I do know is that this whole saga has been generating unwanted headlines for Saudi Arabia, especially at a time, for instance, when Prince William has started a 3-day official visit to Saudi Arabia. I think he was actually playing football today with some local school children, and an initiative to encourage especially young girls and schoolgirls to play football. So I think Saudi Arabia would prefer us to be talking about things like that rather than the fact that probably the sort of poster boy for football in Saudi Arabia and tourism to Saudi Arabia is unhappy at the moment.
What do you think this means then for his long-term future in Saudi? Because what is he? He was 41 on Thursday, not doing too badly for a 41-year-old, probably still one of the fittest footballers in the world. Long-term, does he stay in Saudi, do you think?
I think he's going to be a big story during the summer transfer window because he's got a release clause in his contract of 50 million euros. That's 43 million pounds. His contract has 18 months left to run. I am sure, especially if he has a good World Cup in the US, Canada, Mexico with Portugal this summer, there will be lots of talk about the fact that there will be clubs out there who are tempted to activate that release clause, especially in MLS. Also, some European clubs as well will be interested. The problem is who can match his wages? Who can pay him £500,000 a day after tax? If he's still motivated by money, I think he'll stay in Saudi Arabia. If he perhaps thinks, I want to move on, maybe I want to end my career where it all started, back at Sporting, for instance. If he's willing to take a pay cut, then I think lots of clubs will be queuing to sign him because he's more than just a footballer.